Chapter 579. The escalating conflict crack. The clear sound of bones breaking reverberated throughout the entire restaurant. Soon after, everyone discovered that the head of the monkey-faced Su Gang was strangely bent at this moment. His eyes were bulging, and he was actually deader than dead. Someone from the house of Baichuan was actually killed just like that. Moreover, he was an ultimate emperor realm cultivator. It wasn't easy to nurture such an expert. At this moment, everyone was looking at the calm-looking youth with the green coffin on his back. Their gazes were filled with reverence. This kid looked to be around 19 years old, but he was actually able to kill Su Gang with a wave of his hand. This kid's cultivation and talent were terrifying. The two brawny men at the staircase were also stunned at this moment. The two of them did not expect that things would develop to this point. Zhuowen killed Su Gang, which meant that he had a death feud with the Baichuan marquis residents. This was not a simple matter. You killed Su Gang? Only now did Su Mei regain her senses. She was so angry that her delicate body trembled. He was just a lackey. Is there a problem with me killing him? Zhuowen nodded seriously. With a toss of his right hand, the lifeless Su Gang was tossed to Su Mei's feet by Jun. His actions were as calm as water, without any ripples. Lu Hantian, who was standing beside Zhuowen, didn't do anything. He only silently looked at Zhuowen with a trace of admiration in his eyes. Survival of the fittest was the only rule in this world. If you showed any mercy, others would take advantage of you. Lu Hantian was naturally satisfied with Zhuowen's decisive and ruthless methods. Originally, he was worried that Zhuowen was still young and didn't understand the ways of the world. His previous arrogant actions were purposely to make Zhuowen think deeply and let him know that this was a world where the strong were respected. But now that he saw Zhuowen make a move, he knew that his worries were unnecessary. This kid had done far better than he had imagined. Good. How courageous! You actually dared to kill the people of my Baichuan marquis residence. It has been a long time since someone dared to provoke me. Today, this princess will pull out your tendons and peel off your bones. You will be in so much pain that you will wish you were dead. Men, capture me for these two fellows who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Su Mei furrowed her brows and suppressed her anger. With a wave of her jade-like hand, the remaining 5 people behind her surrounded Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. As for the cold and indifferent youth with an obscure aura, he did not step forward. Instead, he stood silently beside Su Mei. Evidently, he was Su Mei's personal bodyguard. Princess Mei, this is the century-old wine house, and fighting is not allowed. I hope that the princess can give us some face. The development of the situation had already exceeded the two burly men's expectations. Although Su Mei had a noble status and was a direct descendant of the Baichuan marquis residents, that one was even more mysterious and terrifying. To be able to kill an ultimate emperor realm expert with a single move, one had to be at least a third-wheel ultimate emperor realm expert. This Zhuowen looked to be around 19 years old. To be able to achieve this at such a young age, the power behind this kid was probably not weak. Therefore, the two burly men did not want to offend both of them at the same time. Fighting is not allowed? Are the two of you blind? My people were killed. This bastard attacked first. Now that we are retaliating, you are saying that we cannot fight? Could it be that your century-old wine house is purposely picking a fight with our Baichuan marquis residents? Su Mei retorted with a cold snort. The two burly men were instantly speechless. Su Mei was right. However, Zhuowen had acted too quickly. They had not been able to stop him before Su Gang was killed. It was this bastard who attacked first. Therefore, you can ignore the century-old wine house. Today, this princess will take down these two unless the owner of the century-old wine house, Zhuowen, comes. Do it. As she spoke, Su Mei waved her jade-like hand. The 5 people surrounding Zhuowen immediately let out a sinister laugh as they brandished their weapons. The aura of an ultimate emperor realm cultivator suddenly erupted from their bodies. Although Zhuowen had instantly killed Su Gang with a single move, causing the 5 of them to be rather fearful, most of them believed that Zhuowen had launched a sneak attack first, which was why he had been able to kill Su Gang so easily. However, now that the 5 of them had joined forces, this one was as easy as pie. 5 first-wheel Emperor Realm cultivators joining forces. That black-haired youth is in for it. This kind of lineup is enough to heavily injure a second-wheel Emperor Realm cultivator. Even if this youth is a second-wheel Emperor Realm cultivator, he's probably in for it. Many people in the restaurant were watching the show. Their gazes were focused on this side, especially when they saw Su Mei and the other 4 surrounding Jun. They all shook their heads and sighed. You can only blame your bad luck for offending our princess. Although your strength isn't bad, I'm afraid that you're not a match for the 5 of us. If you die, don't blame us when you go to hell. The 5 of them spoke one after another, their faces filled with confidence. However, just as they drew their weapons, a cold light flashed past like a bright moon. The 5 of them were completely stunned on the spot and didn't move an inch. They saw Zhuowen casually stroll out of the encirclement. At some point in time, a huge bone spear had appeared in his hand. The cold light that had flashed just now had actually come from this bone spear. You guys talk too much. Remember to speak less when you go to hell. Otherwise, you'll make a mistake if you talk too much. Zhuowen lightly flicked the tip of the spear with a cold expression. Spurt. The moment Zhuowen walked out of the encirclement, a line of blood appeared on the necks of the 5 people. Then, blood spurted out from their necks like a fountain. The 5 of them clutched their necks tightly, their faces filled with shock and fear. They didn't even see how Zhuowen had attacked. Boom, boom, boom. With despair in their eyes, the 5 of them fell to the ground one after another. The sound of heavy objects falling to the ground resounded throughout the restaurant. A spear to the throat, blood splattered all 5 of them. At this moment, the entire restaurant was so silent that one could hear a pin drop. Only the sound of blood splashing echoed in the silent restaurant. Whether it was Su Mei, the 2 burly men, or the other customers at the tables in the hall, they were all stunned at this moment. Their faces were filled with disbelief. 5 lofty Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivators had died so easily right before their very eyes in an instant? After a long period of silence, the sound of sharp inhales of cold air rang out. Everyone's gazes changed as they looked at the calm youth. This kid was too terrifying. He'd completely annihilated 5 Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioners with a single move. At this moment, the 2 burly men's hearts were filled with joy. They hadn't expected that the seemingly down-and-out youth in front of them would actually possess such terrifying strength. Fortunately, they hadn't offended him before. Otherwise, their fates wouldn't have been any better. Thump, thump, thump. Hun gently wiped off the blood on the tip of his spear as he strolled toward Su Mei with a smile on his face. What do you want? The arrogance on Su Mei's face had long since disappeared as she watched Zhuowen approach. Instead, it was replaced by deep fear. The youth in front of her was too terrifying. 5 Ultimate Emperor Realm practitioners had joined forces, yet he'd defeated them in a single move. His strength had probably long surpassed that of an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. He was probably at least at the 3rd Emperor Realm. I'll give you one last chance. If you leave this place now, I won't pursue the matter from before. You'd best not push your luck. Otherwise, you won't have a good ending. Su Mei's face was gloomy as she spoke in a deep voice. Zhuowen turned a deaf ear to her words and continued to walk towards Su Mei. The bone spear in his hand gave off an even sharper aura. You forced me to do this. Zhuowen's actions had already made his answer clear. Su Mei's face couldn't help but darken as she said in a deep voice, Su Ling, it's time for you to act. This kid refuses a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Teach him a good lesson. The moment Su Mei's words left her mouth, the cold-looking man beside her took a step forward, a rare trace of caution appearing on his cold face. Zhuowen gave him an extremely powerful feeling, but his duty was to protect Su Mei, so he had no choice but to take action. Brother, I'm sorry. You've already killed 6 people from my house of Marquis of Baichuan. Moreover, they were all core disciples of the house of Marquis of Baichuan. I'm sure your anger has dissipated. The cold man named Su Ling spoke in a fearful tone. What a nice, forgive. If I wasn't strong enough today, would your princess have forgiven me? Now that you've discovered that you're weaker than me, you want me to forgive you? Don't you find it laughable? Zhuan sneered as he paused his steps. Su Ling frowned and said helplessly, You should have heard of the house of Marquis of Baichuan, right? Princess Mei is a direct descendant of the house of Marquis of Baichuan. Her status is high. If you touch her, I'm afraid that the house of Marquis of Baichuan will not let you off easily. There's not much difference between letting her off and not letting her off. Do you think that if I let her off now, she'll be magnanimous enough to forgive me and not take revenge on me? How laughable. Zhuowen's mocking expression became even more intense. Looks like you don't intend to let us off? Then there's nothing to talk about. I think you'll regret it. Su Ling's lips curled into a cold smile as he suddenly stepped forward. A vast aura as vast as the sea surged out from his body. The space around him distorted as a cyclone enveloped his entire body. Three-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm Practitioner? This Su Ling is actually an Ultimate Emperor Realm Practitioner. He's really hidden it well. I actually couldn't tell just now. After Su Ling had displayed his strength, cries of surprise rose and fell in the restaurant. Su Ling's sudden outburst had caused many people to be inexplicably shocked. I've already given you a chance just now. Since you didn't cherish it, no one can save you now. Once he released his aura, Su Ling's lips curled into a sinister smile. He stared coldly at Tun, his face filled with confidence that victory was within his grasp. Bastard! Once Su Ling makes his move, you'll definitely die. It's too late for you to beg for mercy now. Su Ling crossed her arms in front of her chest as the corners of her mouth curled into a cruel sneer. That's right. No one can save you now. Yun shook his head and gently waved the bone spear in his hand. The beginner spear intent that he had just grasped suddenly surged out. Instantly, the surrounding space distorted and time stopped. Chapter 580. Old Man Zhuang, how is this possible? How can you be so strong? Yun and Su Ling passed by each other. Everything seemed normal, but Su Ling's eyes were slightly bulging. Only he saw that when the youth in front of him passed by him, the bone spear in the youth's hand moved. Unmoving like a mountain, moving like a thunderbolt, Zhuowen's spear was fast to the extreme. Although Su Ling could feel Zhuowen's spear move, his reaction was unable to catch the slightest trace of it. Fast. It was too fast. This was not a spear technique that an ordinary warrior could use. In the entire restaurant, only two people saw Zhuowen's spear. One of them was Su Ling, and the other was the shabbily dressed Lu Hantian. This kid's formlessness is indeed heaven-defying. He has only been in contact with spear intent for a short while, but he is already able to use it with ease. Although it is only elementary spear intent, if it is used well, it is enough to instantly kill a warrior of the same level. Looking at Zhuowen's back, the satisfaction in Lu Hantian's eyes became even more intense. The more heaven-defying Zhuowen's performance was, the happier he felt. It was as if he was watching his own child continuously grow up in front of him. Other than these two people, the rest of the people in the restaurant only saw Zhuowen casually pass by Su Ling. Then, Su Ling was like a fool, standing in a daze on the spot, as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. What's going on? What happened just now? Did Su Ling become a fool? Just now, I only saw that after the black-haired youth and Su Ling passed by each other, Su Ling was stunned. Could it be that he was possessed? In the restaurant, everyone's faces were filled with puzzlement. Su Ling's abnormal behavior was too strange in their eyes. Dang dang dang. Crisp footsteps slowly sounded. After passing by Su Ling, Yun held the spear in his hand and once again walked towards Su Mei. He was leisurely and carefree. Su Ling, what are you doing? You were sent by my father to protect me. Do you dare to disobey my orders? At this moment, Su Mei sensed that something was wrong, especially when she saw Zhuowen slowly walking over. She couldn't help but slowly retreat. She shouted at Su Ling behind Yun, who seemed to be in a daze. Puchi! An arrow of blood shot towards the sky. Su Ling, who was stunned on the spot, let out a furious roar towards the sky. Fresh blood gushed out from his mouth like a fountain. Both of his eyes were furiously widened, after which he slowly fell to the ground, dying with his eyes wide open. Su Ling, an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator with 3 wheels, had still been insta-killed. Hiss hiss hiss. Gasps rang out one after another. Everyone stared in disbelief at the lifeless Su Ling. A mighty ultimate Emperor realm cultivator had died just like that in the blink of an eye. Moreover, he had died with his eyes wide open. Immediately, everyone's gazes gathered on the calm and carefree young man once more. Their gazes had changed. If this kid had insta-killed 5 ultimate Emperor realm cultivators with a single move, they wouldn't have been too surprised. However, even an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator like Su Ling had been insta-killed. Just how terrifying was this kid's strength? This kid couldn't be offended. At this moment, the same thought flashed through the minds of everyone in the restaurant. To be able to insta-kill an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator with a single move, he had to be at least at the peak of the ultimate Emperor realm. It was even possible that he was at the 4th ultimate Emperor realm. This kid was only around 19 years old. To be able to achieve such accomplishments at such a young age, his talent was already comparable to the 5 super geniuses of Muqin County. This kid's background was definitely not simple. The hearts of the 2 burly men guarding the staircase were currently in turmoil. They couldn't calm down at all. Zhuowen's performance was just too shocking. To be able to insta-kill an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator with such talent and strength wasn't someone the 2 of them could afford to offend. However, the 2 of them were extremely glad that they hadn't offended this mysterious young man. Su Mei no longer had the arrogance from before. Even Su Ling had been insta-killed by Zhuon. She knew that she had probably kicked an iron plate this time. However, the fluke in her heart still allowed her to muster up her courage and say, "I'm the 3rd daughter of Marquis Baichuan. If you kill me, my father won't let you off. I think it's best if you don't go too far." Zhuon stood still and stared at the cowardly Su Mei in front of him. His eyes were filled with disdain as he gently raised his right hand. Slap. A clear sound rang out faintly. Following that, everyone was shocked to discover that the right side of Su Mei's beautiful face had swollen up. It was an exceptionally comical sight. Not only were the people in the restaurant stunned, even the person involved, Su Mei, was stunned. She had never been hit by anyone in her entire life. Now, she had been slapped in front of so many people. Don't go too far? Shouldn't I be the one saying that to you? From the start, I didn't say a single word, nor did I do a single thing. Then, you found trouble with me and asked me to slap myself. After I refused, you ordered people to capture me and pull out my tendons and peel off my bones. My life is worse than death. If I wasn't strong enough today, would I really be tortured to death by you? Then tell me, do you have the right to say that? At this point, Zhuowen's voice became extremely loud. When the people in the restaurant heard this, they all nodded their heads. It was indeed as Zhuowen had said. At the start, Zhuowen didn't say a single word. Instead, it was Su Mei who was so overbearing that Zhuowen rose to resist. Speaking of which, Su Mei was simply reaping what she had sown. You dare to hit me? No one has ever dared to hit me. You actually dared to hit me. I'll kill you. After being slapped, Su Mei had clearly lost her mind. She waved the long sword in her hand and directly stabbed it toward Zhuowen's chest. Her beautiful face was filled with madness. A mantis trying to stop a chariot. With a cold laugh, Zhuowen flicked his finger. A golden radiance burst out and accurately hit the long sword. Instantly, the long sword in Su Mei's hand shattered inch by inch. Slap. Another crisp sound rang out. Zhuowen had slapped Su Mei again. This time, he didn't show any mercy and directly slapped the other side of Su Mei's left cheek. The powerful force directly caused Su Mei's body to spin, after which she heavily crashed onto the ground. The left side of her face was greatly swollen. Immediately, Su Mei's beautiful face was completely disfigured. She looked like a pig's head. Holding both sides of her face, Su Mei no longer dared to make a sound. She stared fearfully at the calm young man in front of her. She knew that if she continued to be willful, she would be dead for sure. This was because she saw a trace of murderous intent in Zhuowen's eyes. Stop! How dare you kill a member of the Marquis House of Baichuan? Who gave you the guts to do so? Just as Yun was about to get rid of Su Mei, a loud shout suddenly rang out from the 100th floor. Following which, Yun felt a terrifying gust of wind behind him. Frowning his brows, he actually felt a trace of threat from the gust of wind behind him. With a cold snort, he moved his feet and instantly dodged the gust of wind. Rumble! The gust of wind whistled past and blasted the pillar that required 3 people to wrap their arms around it. It was instantly reduced to dust. Swoosh! A blue-robed elder came before Su Mei with a furious expression. Looking at the almost unrecognizable Su Mei, the blue-robed elder knitted his brows and his eyes were filled with murderous intent. Elder Su Nu, you're finally here. Hurry up and help me kill this bastard. How dare he hit me? Seeing the blue-robed elder, Su Mei suddenly burst into tears. However, her swollen face looked even uglier when she cried. Many people upstairs couldn't help but turn their heads away, not daring to look at her. It's Su Nu. He's one of the inner sect elders of the Marquis House of Baichuan. His strength has reached the initial stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm. He's also an extremely famous expert in the Marquis House of Baichuan. I'm afraid that young man is going to suffer. When they saw the blue-robed elder clearly, an uproar broke out in the restaurant. Obviously, they had all recognized the blue-robed elder. Brat, who are you? How dare you kill members of the Marquis House of Baichuan and even hit the 3rd Commandery Princess? You're really audacious and arrogant. I'll teach you a lesson on behalf of your elders. As he spoke, the blue-robed elder stomped his foot. The terrifying aura of the Ultimate Emperor realm erupted like a volcano. The surrounding air flowed upwards like an upside-down waterfall. Endless waves of energy surged out. It was awe-inspiring and insufferably arrogant. Ultimate Emperor realm. Zhuo narrowed his eyes. Although he already had his suspicions, when he saw that the blue-robed elder had truly released the aura of a 5th wheel Ultimate Emperor, he still felt serious. However, he was also eager to give it a try. He had just broken through to the 5th wheel Ultimate Emperor realm not too long ago. He wondered what the outcome would be if he faced a true 5th wheel Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. It's over. That young man is doomed. He can't fight against a Ultimate Emperor realm expert. It's rare to meet such a monstrous genius. It's a pity that he's going to die soon. Many people around them shook their heads and sighed. Although Zhuowen's performance was astonishing, it was impossible for him to reach the Ultimate Emperor realm at such a young age. After all, the number 1 genius of Muqin County, LV Tao, had only reached the Ultimate Emperor realm at the age of 21. They didn't think that this young man, who was less than 20 years old, could reach the Ultimate Emperor realm. Just as the scene was about to explode, a loud laugh suddenly rang out. It was like a great bell that resounded through the entire 100-year brew. The 100-year brew is so lively today. Let me join in the fun. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure suddenly descended between Zhuo Wen and Su Nu. It was an old man with a head full of silver hair, and he wore a black and white robe with long sleeves. Especially his completely red brandy nose, he was exceptionally conspicuous. After he arrived between the two of them, the old man with rosacea touched his waist and withdrew a bottle of wine from his gourd, and then he pulled out the lid before raising his head and fiercely gulping it down. He drank while clicking his tongue with praise, and he completely didn't realize that he was standing between 2 people that were about to enter into a battle. After sensing 2 unfriendly gazes, the old man with the rosacea chuckled and said to Zhuan and Su Nu, "Why are you 2 staring at me? This wine was brewed by me with great effort. A drop is worth thousands of gold. Don't even think about it." As he spoke, he burped. Then, under the strange gazes of the crowd, he fell asleep between Zhuan and Su Nu, snoring loudly. Chapter 581. Lehantian was furious. Zhuowen stared at the sleeping old man with rosacea in front of him. There was a trace of fear in his eyes. He actually felt an extremely strong threat from this old man. This old man's strength was definitely far beyond Su Nu's. At this moment, Su Nu's face was also full of fear. He knew the old man with rosacea, who was the founder of the century-old brew restaurant. Although he was not as powerful as the giants of the 5 superpowers in the prefecture, the difference was not big. It was said that he was very close to the 9-wheel emperor realm. Moreover, this Zue Weng old man was known as the #1 expert below the 5 magnates. It was because of this Zue Weng old man's backing that the 100-year brew was able to flourish in the provincial capital. Without a strong backing, it would be easy for other forces to suppress it. I didn't expect you to come out, Elder Zue Weng. But as you can see, we didn't offend that little bastard at all, but he killed 7 of us indiscriminately. If I hadn't sensed something wrong, even the 3rd commandery princess would have been killed. I think you're a reasonable person, Elder Zue Weng. Su Nu cupped his hands and spoke in a rather courteous tone. As soon as he came up, he pinned a groundless accusation on Zhuowen and put the house of Marquis of Baichuan in a weak position. He knew that this old man was not to be trifled with. Naturally, he would not say that all this was caused by the people of the house of Baichuan. As soon as Su Nu finished speaking, many people around the restaurant frowned, but no one stood out to say anything. Su Nu was the inner elder of the Marquis mansion. His status and strength were extremely great, so they could not afford to offend him. So, they all kept silent. Zue Weng, who was pretending to be asleep, rubbed his eyes and pretended to stand up. He glanced at Su Nu indifferently and then fixed his eyes on Juan. He said, "What do you want to say? You killed these people, didn't you? If you want to condemn someone, you can always find a pretext." Juan shook his head and sneered. Zue Weng frowned slightly and said coldly, "I'm asking you, did you kill these people?" "Yes, I did. But I did it out of self-defense. It was Su Mei, and others who started the trouble." Facing Zue Weng's question, Juan was not afraid at all and said indifferently, "You really have guts. Don't you know that fighting is not allowed in the 100-year wine house? Who gave you the guts to do that? You don't need to quibble. You were the one who made the first move. I've been here for a long time." Old man Zue Weng shook his head. His tone became somewhat cold as a terrifying aura surged out. Zhuowen's eyelids twitched when he sensed drunken old man's powerful aura. This drunken old man was indeed terrifying. Just the aura that he exuded was far beyond that of an ultimate 5-wheel emperor. It was no wonder that he was known as the strongest person below the 5 magnates. This title was not baseless. The moment old man Zue Weng arrived, he immediately put pressure on Zhuon. This immediately caused many people to be puzzled. They knew that what Zhuon said was right. The first ones to cause trouble were Su Mei and the others. However, old man Zue Weng did not pursue the matter with Su Mei and the others. Instead, he put pressure on Zhuon. Many people did not understand. On the other hand, Su Nu and Su Mei's lips curled up as they revealed a complacent look. Old man Zue Weng's origin was mysterious. Many people did not know how he rose to power and how he established himself in the county. However, Su Nu and Su Mei knew that old man Zue Weng's rise could not be separated from the support of Marquis Baichuan, Su Chang. Therefore, old man Zue Weng had a very close relationship with Marquis Baichuan's mansion. However, the others did not know about this. Even the other 4 superpowers did not know about the relationship between old man Zue Weng and Su Chang. Old man Zue Weng's sudden attack and the complacent smiles on Su Nu and Su Mei's faces immediately moved Juan. His face turned slightly ugly. Old man Zue Weng had arrived early and did not stop Su Mei from causing trouble. Now that Su Mei was in trouble, he appeared in time and attacked Jian Wushuang as soon as he appeared. Perhaps old man Zue Weng's relationship with Marquis Baichuan's mansion was not ordinary. "Oh, are you going to kill me?" Zhuan stared coldly at old man Zue Weng and said slowly, "Don't worry. I'm not an unreasonable person. Although Su Mei and the others were at fault, you killed them unreasonably. You're such a cruel person. No matter how talented you are, you'll still be a scourge. I won't kill you, but I can cripple you to prevent you from harming others in the future." Old man Zue Weng sneered and a terrifying aura surrounded him. Suddenly, the air flowed upward and formed a funnel-shaped hurricane. The space collapsed and a black hole appeared vaguely. The wind howled. "So don't blame me for being ruthless. You can only blame yourself for being too arrogant." After saying that, old man Zue Weng stretched out his right hand and directly hit Zhuowen's chest. The sun and the moon reversed and the stars moved. The whole world changed color. It's over. That young man is doomed. Old man Zue Weng is the strongest person below the 5 magnates. He's only one step away from reaching the ultimate 9-wheel emperor realm. Such an expert is not someone that he can compete with. Old man Zue Weng is acting a little strange today. He's actually siding with the house of Marquis Baichuan without distinguishing right from wrong. Could it be that the two of them are closely related? Everyone shook their heads and sighed when they saw old man Zue Weng make his move. They knew that the young man with the green coffin would definitely die. Boom. But soon, everyone was shocked to discover that old man Zue Weng's hand, which had traveled through time and space, had been grabbed by an extremely filthy hand. Then, old man Zue Weng, with his terrifying aura, fell flat on his face. Cripple Eurus? Who do you think you are? How dare you touch my brother? I'll cripple you today. At the instant drunken old man fell, an incomparably vulgar voice echoed throughout the restaurant. Following which, the sloppy beggar, who had been motionless before, suddenly appeared in front of Zhuowen at some unknown time. Then, a shocking scene suddenly appeared before everyone's eyes. They saw old man Zue Weng, who had been arrogant, fall to the ground. Then, the beggar stepped on him and the dirty sole of his foot made intimate contact with old man Zue Weng's cheek. You're awesome? You're arrogant? Who told you to show off? Who told you to show off? How dare you touch my brother? You won't even be able to show off. The beggar raised his foot and stomped fiercely. Every step landed on old man Zue Weng's cheek. The terrifying smell of his foot almost caused old man Zue Weng to faint. What shocked old man Zue Weng even more was that when he used all his strength to get up and resist, a pressure like the might of the heavens ruthlessly pressed down on his back, causing him to be unable to get up. Who was this person? This pressure was much more terrifying than Marquis Baichuan's Su Chang. It wasn't something that an ultimate emperor realm cultivator could possess. Could this person be a 4th Reverend realm expert? Old man Zue Weng's eyelids twitched when he thought of this. If this beggar was really a 4th Reverend realm expert, then he was really unlucky. His heart was already filled with deep regret. If he knew that such an expert existed, how could he have dared to deal with Jun? He really wanted to slap his own mouth. Everyone in the restaurant fell silent. Only the beggar's voice reverberated in the surroundings. His words were vulgar and licentious. Old man Zue Weng, who was originally high and mighty and needed to be looked up to, was now being humiliated and trampled under the beggar's foot. Even a fool could tell that the beggar's strength far surpassed old man Zue Weng's. This beggar was at least a 5th Reverend realm expert, or even stronger. Everyone couldn't help but gasp when they thought of this possibility. Su Nu and Su Mei, who were watching coldly from the sidelines, were completely dumbfounded. Old man Zue Weng, whose strength was second only to Su Chang, was humiliated and trampled under the beggar's foot. At this moment, the two of them finally began to pay attention to this shabby beggar. This beggar was probably a hermit expert. My lord, spare my life, please spare my life. I won't dare to do it again. Old man Zue Weng finally couldn't bear it anymore. He hurriedly knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. This wasn't a battle of the same level at all. He was being abused. Lu Hantian kicked him a few more times. He let out a long sigh and said, "My feet are so sore. Boy, why don't you kick him a few times too? This human sandbag is pretty good." Hearing this, everyone in the restaurant was shocked. This Lu Hantian didn't have the demeanor of an expert at all. Not only did he speak vulgarly, but his behavior was also similar to that of a commoner. Jun shook his head. He turned his eyes slightly and looked at Su Nu and Su Mei, who were nervous not far away. Feeling Zhuowen's gaze, Su Nu and Su Mei felt numb on their backs. They had seen how ferocious the beggar was, and they knew they couldn't compete with him at all. Little brother, Su Nu didn't know you were this senior's brother. Please forgive me for my rudeness just now. Su Nu was quite bold. He hurriedly pulled Su Mei to kneel down in a very humble manner. Even old man Zue Weng was beaten like that. Su Nu naturally didn't dare to show any disrespect. His heart was already filled with fear. "Get out of my way." Nguyen directly kicked Old Man Zue Weng away. With Lu Hantian beside him, Old Man Zue Weng naturally didn't dare to resist. He let Tuan kick him and rolled to the side very cooperatively. Many people around were really shocked. Walking slowly to Su Nu and Su Mei, Tuan said lightly, "I'm not an unreasonable person. The one who stirred up the trouble was the princess of Marquis Mansion of Baichuan, and you indiscriminately accused me of a crime. That Old Man Zue Weng even wanted to cripple me directly. Do you think I can tolerate this?" Su Nu's heart thumped. He continued, "Little brother, what do you want? Marquis Mansion of Baichuan is not that easy to mess with." "Don't mention Marquis Mansion of Baichuan in front of me. Now I'll give you a chance. That is, you and I will fight to the death. If you win, you can leave with that bitch beside you. If you lose, you two will stay here forever." Chapter 582. A battle of life and death. They didn't expect that the young man with the green coffin would challenge Su Nu. Although Zhuo Wen's previous performance had been shocking, as he had killed Su Ling, who was a three-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, with a single move, Su Nu wasn't someone Su Ling could compare to. He was a five-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert, and he wasn't at the same level as Su Ling. Furthermore, Zhuo Wen was too young. At his age, it was unlikely that he had reached the ultimate level of a five-wheel Emperor Realm. No matter how one looked at it, challenging Su Nu was an act of seeking death. So what exactly was this youth relying on? Su Nu's face twitched and he frowned slightly. With a beggar like Lu Hantian around, he didn't dare to accept the challenge. It was inevitable to be injured in a battle. He was afraid that he would hurt the young man in front of him. Especially when he saw the dying drunkard old man lying on the ground, Su Nu didn't dare to accept the challenge. He was really afraid that the beggar would kill him. "Don't worry about my big brother. This is between you and me. If you win, you'll be free. If you lose, you'll stay alive. Otherwise, you'll die now," Zhuan said indifferently. Lu Hantian stepped on drunkard old man's back and struck a pose. He didn't say anything to oppose. Obviously, he had acquiesced to Zhuo Wen's actions. "But I accept." Su Nu knew that he had no other choice. He gritted his teeth and agreed. He knew that he only needed to win. He was very confident in his strength. He could easily win without hurting the young man. The corners of Zhuo Wen's mouth curled up slightly. With a stomp of his foot, he leaped down from the top of the restaurant and arrived at an empty space below the restaurant. His loud and clear voice echoed out. "This place will be our battlefield. We will fight to the death, and only the winner will be able to leave this place alive. Su Nu, get down here now." The loud voice, like the morning bell and evening drum, resounded around the open space. Instantly, everyone on the floor of the 100-Year Brew House looked at the arrogant young man on the open space below. Who is that? How dare he set up a battle in front of the 100-Year Brew House? Doesn't he know that private fights are not allowed here? When Old Man Zue Weng comes out, this kid will be in for a bad time. The person he wanted to challenge seems to be called Su Nu. Could it be Su Nu, the inner court elder of Marquis Baichuan's mansion? Impossible. Su Nu of the House of Marquis Baichuan is a five-wheel Ultimate Emperor. Isn't this young man courting death by challenging Su Nu? He's probably someone with the same name. Although the matter on the 99th floor was sensational enough, only the people on the adjacent floors knew exactly what had happened. The customers on the other floors basically did not know what had happened on the 99th floor. At this moment, they were all discussing the young man on the empty ground below. There were even quite a number of people who revealed mocking expressions. Su Nu's face darkened slightly. With a cold snort, he also jumped down and stood in front of Zhuan. The two of them faced each other from a distance. It was really Su Nu from Marquis Mansion of Baichuan. Was there something wrong with this guy's brain? You actually dare to challenge an Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator with 5 wheels? Are you courting death? Su Nu's appearance immediately caused an uproar among the people who were paying attention in the restaurant. Only now did they realize that the Su Nu that the young man had challenged was really Su Nu, the inner court elder of Marquis Baichuan's mansion. The two of them set up a death match on the empty ground. Is Zhu Wang Elder not going to intervene? A middle-aged man with a dignified expression snorted coldly. He stared coldly at Zhuan and Su Nu below. His face was full of displeasure. He had come here to drink tea, not to watch others fight to the death. Bang! As soon as the middle-aged man finished speaking, an extremely wretched figure fell from the sky. When the crowd looked over, they immediately discovered that this wretched figure was Zhu Wang Elder, the owner of the 100-year wine. What was even more shocking was that there was actually a beggar in rags standing on the back of drunkard old man. Moreover, this beggar was even posing in midair in a very hateful manner. He thought that he was very handsome, and the narcissistic expression on his face was extremely infuriating. Who is this beggar? How could he stand directly on Zhu Wang Elder's back and use him as a mount? Such a scene caused everyone to roll their eyes, speechless to the extreme. After landing on the ground, Lu Hantian kicked Zhu Wang Elder fiercely. Zhu Wang Elder bent down with a flattering smile on his face, allowing Lu Hantian to slowly walk down to the ground with an expression of, "I am a good dog." At this moment, Zhu Wang Elder really did not know what to say. The beggar in front of him was too strong. Killing him was as easy as pinching an ant. He did not dare to have the slightest disobedience. Zhu Wang Elder's performance made everyone's jaws drop again. Was this still the superior Zhu Wang Elder? Why did he not even dare to fart in front of the beggar? Moreover, he acted like a dog. What a good dog. All right, scram to the side. This old man wants to watch the fight between these two, Lu Hantian said in a carefree manner. I will get lost, I will get lost. Zhu Wang Elder still had a flattering smile on his face. Then he lay on the ground and rolled to the side. Such a performance once again refreshed everyone's bottom line. Zhuan was somewhat speechless as he looked at Lu Hantian's prank. This old man had probably been locked up in the Blood Devil's land of inheritance for a long time. There was something wrong with his mind. What he did was really ridiculous. Zhu Wang Elder was almost broken by him. On the opposite side, Su Nu's face twitched and turned pale. This beggar was too strange. He must not fall into the hands of this person. Otherwise, his fate would be even worse than Zhu Wang Elder's. Let's start. Don't be so wishy-washy. Boy, finish off this old man in 3 moves. He is an eyesore to me. Lu Hantian waved his hand and laughed. Finish off in 3 moves? This was too arrogant. Su Nu was an ultimate 5-wheel emperor. The young man in front of him was probably not as strong as Su Nu. How could he finish him off in 3 moves? Zhuan nodded as if he was serious. He opened his right hand and a bone spear with cold light appeared in his hand. He pointed the tip of the spear at Su Nu and said indifferently, 3 moves is too much. 1 move is enough. As he spoke, Zhuan took a step forward, and his imposing aura gushed out like the eruption of a volcano. The surrounding air flowed upwards like an inverted waterfall, and it gave rise to a myriad of strong waves. His hair fluttered in the wind, and his gaze was ghastly cold. This aura was like a vast ocean, spreading throughout the entire open space. Everyone had an illusion that the open space was no longer an open space, but a vast and boundless ocean. This was a display of a powerful aura. Ultimate 5-wheel emperor? The moment Zhuan's aura burst out, Su Nu's pupils shrank to the size of needles. Shock appeared on his face. No wonder this young man in front of him dared to challenge him. It turned out that the former was a genuine ultimate 5-wheel emperor. A ultimate 5-wheel emperor? How old is this young man? He is not even 20 years old, right? He has reached the ultimate 5-wheel emperor at such a young age? Isn't that a little too terrifying? The number 1 genius of Muqin County, Lu Yitao, also reached the ultimate 5-wheel emperor at the age of 21. This young man is younger than Lu Yitao, but he has also reached the ultimate 5-wheel emperor. Is his talent even more terrifying than Lu Yitao's? Who is this young man? He is definitely not an ordinary person with such cultivation at such a young age. When did such a monstrous genius appear in Muqin County? For a moment, the entire Century Brewed restaurant was in an uproar. Many people had thought that Zhuan was overestimating himself by challenging Su Nu, But when Zhuan released the aura of an ultimate five-wheel emperor, this thought had long been thrown out of the window. This guy, how is this possible? Not far away, Su Ming, who was covering her face, saw the figure with messy hair fluttering in the wind. Her eyes were filled with disbelief. She had never imagined that this young man, who she had never taken seriously, would have such terrifying talent and strength. He had reached the ultimate five-wheel emperor before the age of 20. This was a monstrous genius who had surpassed Lu Yitao. It was only a matter of time before such a genius reached the level of her father, Su Chang. At this moment, Su Mei's delicate body trembled. Her heart was filled with regret. She hated herself for looking for trouble. Such a genius was not someone she could afford to offend. Even her father, Su Chang, would not casually offend such a genius and make a strong enemy for the house of Marquises of Baichuan. Elder Su knew you must win. Su Mu muttered to herself in a daze. Little brother, you are indeed extremely talented. However, you and I are both at the initial stage of the ultimate five-wheel emperor realm. Aren't you a little too arrogant to think that you can defeat me in one move? Su Nu's face darkened as he sensed the vast aura within Zhuowen's body. He snorted coldly. Arrogant? In my opinion, it's not that I'm arrogant. It's just that you're not worthy of me using a second move. You only have one chance to attack me. If you don't grasp it, you'll die here. Vun flicked the tip of the bone spear. He was as calm as water. After obtaining the inheritance of the blood demon, ordinary ultimate five-wheel emperor realm cultivators were no longer qualified to be his opponent. If Zhuan revealed his trump card, he would not even fear a ultimate six-wheel emperor realm cultivator. Good. I'd like to see how you'll defeat me in one move. Su Nu was so angry that he laughed. He stomped his foot and a violent aura surged out. Following that, Su Nu's figure flashed and he actually vanished from the spot. He turned into a series of afterimages and instantly appeared above Zhuan. Meteor cross steel. With a low shout, Su Nu formed a complicated seal with his hands. For a moment, the surrounding air flowed in reverse. The space collapsed and formed many black holes. Within the black holes, huge cross-shaped steels that were dozens of feet long quickly appeared. Like a storm, countless cross-shaped steels fell and crashed into Zhuowen's body. For a moment, the huge open space was filled with cross-shaped steels. The moment Su Nu displayed the cross-shaped steels, many people's expressions changed. The meteor cross steel was extremely famous in the Marquis of Baichuan's residence. It was an upper emperor armor technique with terrifying power. Su Nu, looks like you didn't grasp your only remaining chance. It's my turn now. After a moment of silence, a clear voice slowly reverberated under the countless steels. Following that, countless huge steels shattered one after another. Gravel flew everywhere. Chapter 583. Realization of death. In an instant, Yun leaped into the sky. His spear moved like a furious dragon. Wherever it passed, the space collapsed and a black hole appeared. It seemed slow but was actually fast. Block it. Su Nu's face was extremely gloomy when he saw that the meteor cross steel could not do anything to Zhuan. He was inexplicably shocked. The youth in front of him was indeed terrifying. The meteor cross steels were a high-level emperor-level armor technique, after all. The power of the steels was even greater. Most ultimate emperors with 5 wheels would be injured, but Zhuowen was completely unharmed. At this moment, Zhuowen's bone spear had arrived. It looked ordinary, but a trace of contempt appeared in Su Nu's eyes. With a shake of his sleeve, a terrifying power gushed out and formed a green tortoiseshell wall in front of him. Clang! The bone spear arrived in an instant and blasted the tortoiseshell wall. A crisp sound rang out, and then Su Nu was shocked to find that the tortoiseshell wall collapsed inch by inch like tofu. The bone spear pierced through the wall like a hot knife through butter and instantly swept towards Su Nu's forehead. An unfathomable spear intent burst out and the bone spear's speed suddenly soared to the extreme. It was so fast that even Su Nu could not see it clearly. A cold light flashed and Zhuan passed by Su Nu in an instant. The bone spear was flat, and on the green tip of the spear, a trace of cherry red blood dripped down. In the silent open space, the The sound was ear-piercing and loud. This spear had a soul and was called Spear Intent. When Spear Intent burst out, it was invincible among the same level. What's going on? Huan. Within the restaurant, countless people were staring at the two figures who were facing each other with their backs facing each other on the empty ground. Just now, after the two of them had passed each other, the two of them were like stone statues, not moving at all. It was impossible to tell who had won the exchange just now. An arrow of blood shot into the sky. Su Nu slowly turned his head. His eyes bulged as he stared at Zhuo Wen's back. On his neck, a thin line of blood slowly spread. Then, blood gushed out like a flood breaking through a dam. Boom! Falling to the ground, Su Nu's life force gradually disappeared. His eyes were wide open. He still didn't know why Zhuo Wen's spear aura had soared to such a terrifying level at the last moment. Even he couldn't see it clearly. He had been completely defeated. The moment Su Niyang fell to the ground, it was as if a bomb had been ignited. The entire century-old brew restaurant was in an uproar. Defeated? Su Nu was really defeated, and he was killed in one move. At this moment, everyone's gazes converged on the young man carrying the green coffin on his back on the other side of the empty ground. Their eyes were filled with respect. This mysterious young man was too terrifying. Su Nu was defeated in one move just as he had said. How strong was this young man? How great was his potential? That was the only thought in everyone's mind. It's your turn. He flicked the tip of the spear with his right hand, and the remaining blood on the spear evaporated into nothingness under the force of his finger. Then he pointed the bone spear at Su Mil, who was not far away, whose face was filled with fear. No. Let me go. I shouldn't have offended you. I know I was wrong. I only beg you to forgive me. With a plop, Su Mil directly knelt on the ground with a begging expression on her face. When Zhuo Wen killed Su Nu with a single move, the last hope in her heart was completely destroyed. At this moment, her heart was filled with regret and hatred. She hated herself for being so brainless. She had offended this demon for no reason. Forgive you? If I wasn't strong enough today, would you have let me go? I'm afraid not. Since you want to kill me, you should be prepared to be killed at any time. There is no absolute hunter and prey in this world. Sometimes, the hunter and the prey can be exchanged at any time. Therefore, to live in this world, everyone must be prepared to die. After saying that, Zhuo Wen moved. With a stomp of his foot, his whole body turned into several residual shadows. In an instant he passed by Su Mei. The bone spear swept across her neck mercilessly. Blood splattered. Su Mei's expression froze, and then she slowly fell to the ground. The restaurant was silent. Zhuo Wen's decisive and ruthless means had completely stunned everyone. Many people were full of fear. They swore that they would never offend such a demon like Su Mei. Otherwise, the consequences would not be any better than Su Nu and Su Mei. Su Nu and Su Mei are dead. This time, the house of Marquis Baichuan has suffered a great loss. I wonder how Su Chang will feel when he knows about this. Many people were even gloating. Su Nu and Su Mei had a high status in the house of Marquis Baichuan. Now that both of them were dead, Su Chang would probably be furious. Brother Zhuo? You are Brother Zhuo? After dealing with Su Mei and Su Nu, Yun was about to enter the Century Brewed restaurant with Lu Hantian. Suddenly, a voice of surprise rang out from the crowd. Immediately, a beautiful girl in red rushed towards Yun. Looking at the excited girl in red, Zhuo Wen's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. He could not help but say, "Miss Honglian, you are also here." The red-clothed girl in front of him was a disciple of the Jade Lady Astral Court. She was also the junior sister who had the best relationship with Clear Lotus. Zhuo Wen had once saved her in the dark forest on the second floor of the Vitality Tower. Speaking of which, Yun had to kill Su Liang, the second son of the house of Marquis Baichuan, to save this girl and Qinglian. Thus, he had a blood feud with the house of Marquis Baichuan. You are not dead? And you came out of the Vitality Tower? Did you get the inheritance of the Blood Devil? You know, senior sister Qinglian has been depressed for a long time because of you. As soon as Hong Lian came, she threw out a lot of questions which gave Zhuan a lot of headaches. "Oh, boy, you have good luck with women. This girl is a few years younger than you. You actually killed her. Tut tut, you really have the demeanor of your big brother when I was young." At this time, Lu Hantian came over with a dirty face. His face was full of lewd ridicule. His eyes kept moving between Zhuan and Hong Lian with an expression that said, "I knew it," which made Zhuan want to beat him up. After all, Hong Lian was an inexperienced girl. After being teased by Lu Hantian, her original liveliness disappeared. She lowered her head, and a trace of blush appeared on her cheeks. She stammered, "Senior, you misunderstood. In fact, Brother Zhuo and I are ordinary friends." I know. Lu Hantian still nodded with a smirk on his face. His expression said, "You are lying." Zhuan couldn't stand it anymore and quickly said, "It is not convenient to talk here. How about we go inside the Centennial Winehouse?" The reason Zhuan said this was because he saw a trace of hesitation in Hong Lian's eyes. It was obvious that Hong Lian was still hiding something from him. Lu Hantian suddenly shouted, "You Zueweng old man, hurry up and lead us to the 100th floor of the Centennial Winehouse. Bring me the best wine and dishes." Not far away, Zueweng old man, who was pretending to be dead, quickly rolled over to Lu Hantian's feet. He stood up and said with a flattering smile, "This little one will lead the way. 3 sirs, please follow me." Zueweng old man had a submissive appearance. He then eagerly led the 3 of them into the Centennial Winehouse. "Brother Zhuo, that really is the Centennial Winehouse's owner, Zueweng old man." Zueweng old man's performance really shocked Hong Lian. Zueweng old man was known as the #1 person below the 5 magnates. He was a high and mighty figure. However, such a person didn't show any temper in front of Zhuan and Lu Hantian. Instead, he acted like a servant and fawned over them. "Let's go. Let's talk inside the Centennial Winehouse." With that, the 4 of them quickly ascended to the top floor of the Centennial Winehouse, leaving the rest of the people in the restaurant staring at each other. The scene just now was too shocking. Everyone began to guess the origins of the youth with the green coffin and the beggar. Zhuan, Hong Lian, and Lu Hantian sat in a luxurious room. Zhuan looked at Hong Lian and said, "What happened to Qing Lian? Did she obtain one of the ancient inheritances?" Senior sister Qing Lian successfully obtained the Wind Sword Sex inheritance. She's now at the peak of the 4th wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. Her strength is probably comparable to an early-stage 5th wheel Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. However, because of what happened to Brother Zhuo, senior sister Qing Lian was greatly affected. She's now in closed-door cultivation. She's only willing to come out after the War of the 9 Counties begins, Hong Lian said helplessly. Zhuan nodded slightly when he heard that. However, he was slightly surprised. Qing Lian's cultivation had been at the bottom of the pile, only at the mid-second wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. After obtaining the Wind Sword Sex inheritance, she'd actually reached the peak of the 4th wheel of the Ultimate Emperor realm. It seemed that Qing Lian had obtained a great fortuitous encounter in the Wind Sword sect. Otherwise, it would be impossible for her to advance so quickly. Zhuan was naturally happy for his friend. "Miss Hong Lian, I saw your eyes flicker and your brows knit together. Is there something else?" Zhuan suddenly asked. After seeing Red Lotus for the first time, he keenly noticed that apart from being excited and happy to see him, there was also a trace of hesitation. This trace of hesitation gave Zhuo a bad premonition. Hong Lian's eyes flickered. She sighed softly, "I originally didn't want to talk to you about this, but the senior beside you is unfathomable. Perhaps you really can resolve that calamity this time." "What calamity?" Zhuan hurriedly asked. The bad feeling in his heart grew even stronger. Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City have been destroyed. After a moment of hesitation, Hong Lian clenched her teeth and told Zhuan the news that shocked him. "Rumble." Zhuan's eyes narrowed to the size of needles. He suddenly clenched his right hand, causing the wine cup in his hand to shatter inch by inch. Due to his excitement, his uncontrollable aura surged out, causing the entire table to shatter. What did you say?" Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City have been destroyed? How is that possible? Chapter 584. Bronze Paper Kite. The surging killing intent spread throughout the restaurant like a tidal wave. The surrounding tables crumbled under the killing intent and turned into wood shavings. Lu Hantian's playful smile vanished. This was the first time he had seen the usually indifferent Zhuan reveal such a strong killing intent. Perhaps the Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City that Red Lotus had mentioned were extremely important to Zhuan. I'm sorry. I was too agitated just now. Miss Red Lotus, can you tell me in detail what happened? Zhuan gradually calmed down and looked straight at Red Lotus as he spoke. Lu Hantian couldn't help but nod when he saw that Zhuan was able to regain his composure in such a short period of time. Whether it was Zhuan's temperament or character, Lu Hantian was extremely satisfied. He knew that if this kid continued to develop, his future would be limitless. Red Lotus stole a glance at Lu Hantian beside Zhuan, and a trace of hesitation appeared on her pretty face. Don't worry. Big Brother Hantian is one of us, so there's no need to be so formal. Zhuan waved his hand and smiled. Seeing this, Red Lotus's worries were also dispelled. She then began to narrate the events of the past 2 months in detail. As Red Lotus narrated, Zhuan's face became increasingly gloomy. His fists were clenched so tightly that cracking sounds could be heard from them. It turned out that after the conclusion of the Vitality Tower battle, everyone believed that Zhuan had already fallen in the Blood Devil inheritance. Therefore, they didn't wait for Zhuan to appear and left one after another. Lu Nantian took away the top 100 geniuses of the Vitality Tower battle and began to focus on nurturing them so that they would be able to perform well in the upcoming battle of the 9 counties. As for Gu Yutian, Gu Xian, and Hu Wuing, since Zhuan's whereabouts were unknown, many of the leaders of the forces who had been enthusiastic about Gu Yutian had become much colder and no longer paid any attention to Gu Yutian and the others. However, the Marquis of Baichuan's estate was overbearing. They actually intercepted Gu Yutian's group of 3 near the Origin Qi Tower, wanting to detain them and take them away. Fortunately, Xiu Chou and the others from Broken Rock City helped. Moreover, Luo Xing and Qing Lian both made a move, so the Marquis of Baichuan's estate did not succeed. After Gu Yutian's group of 3 returned, they arranged for the important figures of Rattan Armor City to move to Broken Rock City. However, this was all part of the Marquis of Baichuan's estate's plot. Su Tianliang purposely let Gu Yutian bring people to Broken Rock City so that they could capture all the important figures of the 2 cities in one fell swoop. Although Muqin County had a rule that super forces could not attack other forces, the rule was dead after all. The Marquis of Baichuan's estate did not attack Broken Rock City, but Su Tianliang took advantage of the loophole in the rule and secretly contacted several super cities that were not on good terms with Broken Rock City. This was a premeditated war. A total of 5 super cities were instigated by Su Tianliang. Then, 5 elite divisions, a total of 1 million mighty soldiers, attacked Broken Rock City under Su Tianliang's plan. 3 days and 3 nights. Broken Rock City only lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. Then, 1 million mighty cavalry broke through the city, trampled the city walls, and wantonly slaughtered in Broken Rock City. In one night, Broken Rock City was massacred. Whether it was warriors or civilians, they were all turned into corpses. The huge Broken Rock City was turned into a graveyard. For a moment, the entire Muqin County was shaken. Broken Rock City was considered one of the top super cities in Muqin County, but it was actually massacred. This news almost spread throughout Muqin County. However, Marquis Muqin, Lu Nantian, didn't show up. Although super forces couldn't attack other forces, forces of the same level could attack and conquer cities. Whether it was massacring or being destroyed, Lu Nantian wouldn't show up because it was allowed. Although many people knew that the House of Marquis Baichuan was in charge, they were one of the super forces after all. No one dared to provoke such a powerful force. Even the House of Marquis Qin could only turn a blind eye. If it was under normal circumstances, Lu Nantian might have stood up. However, with the arrival of the War of the 9 Counties, Lu Nantian's attention was basically focused on cultivating the 100 geniuses. He basically did not have much time to deal with such matters. This was the loophole that the house of Marquis Baichuan took advantage of. Broken Rock City was destroyed. What about Senior Chiu Cho and the people of Rotan Armor City? Zhuan asked in a low voice. Senior Chiu Cho is the strongest. After the city fell, he broke through the heavy siege and escaped. However, Ouyang Yuntu and the other important figures of Broken Rock City, as well as the people of Rotan Armor City, were basically captured alive. They are now imprisoned in a newly built prison in the ruins of Broken Rock City. Originally, Su Tianliang wanted to order people to kill all the captives. However, the master of the meteorite of Jade Lady Galaxy asked for the captives, so Su Tianliang did not succeed. Now, Jade Lady Galaxy is negotiating with the house of Marquis Baichuan, hoping to release the captives. Speaking of this, Hong Lian suddenly glanced at Zhuowen and carefully said, "The Zhuo family is also imprisoned in the prison. It is said that because of you, Su Tianliang specially ordered people to take care of the Zhuo family. It is said that many of the Zhuo family members were tortured to death." Zhuan clenched his fists. His heart was filled with anger, especially when he heard that many of the Zhuo family members were tortured to death. The anger in Zhuowen's heart erupted like a volcano, almost uncontrollable. What about my grandfather, uncle, and the others? Zhuowen let out a light sigh and asked. I don't know. However, those who were tortured to death were basically the members of the Zhuo family with low cultivation. Your grandfather's cultivation is not low, so he should be fine, Hong Lian said softly. Zhuowen sneered. Although Hong Lian said that it was fine, Su Tianliang's hatred for him would probably vent a lot of his anger on his grandfather, uncle, and other relatives who were close to him. Go back and say hello to the master of the meteorite for me. Thank you for interceding for my family and friends. I owe Jade Lady Galaxy a favor. Zhuowen knew that if it were not for the master of the meteorite, all the captives in Broken Rock City and Rotan Armor City would have been killed, instead of just being imprisoned. As he spoke, Zhuowen slowly stood up. His gaze became extremely fierce. Su Tianliang, you are indeed ruthless. You actually dared to attack my, Zhuowen's, friends and relatives. This time, I will absolutely not let you go. Su Tianliang was a scourge to him. If he did not get rid of him, the lives of his family and friends would not be guaranteed. Dun, you better not be rash. Broken Rock City is now heavily guarded. Moreover, it is said that there are several Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artists guarding it. It is impossible for you to save them alone. Seeing Zhuowen stand up, Hong Lian hurriedly pulled Zhuowen back. Her face was full of worry. Zhuowen shook his head and said, if someone gives me a drop of water, I will give them back an ocean. In the prison of Broken Rock City, there are my family and friends. They have all helped and supported me. Although I, am not a person who is afraid of death. There are things that a man should do and things that he should not do. If I were to ignore my family and friends being imprisoned, would I still be a human? I must go to Broken Rock City. Jun shook his right hand and shook off Hong Lian's hand. He slowly walked out of the restaurant. However, just as he was about to step out of the door, a figure blocked his path. Big brother Han Tian, don't tell me that you also want to advise me not to be rash? Zhuowen said in a low voice as he stared at the sloppy man in front of him. At this moment, Lu Hantian looked at the stubborn youth in front of him with a complicated gaze. However, he shook his head and said, the distance between the provincial capital and Broken Rock City is not small. With your speed, you will need at least half a month to reach there. I'm afraid that you won't be able to wait that long. At this point, Lu Hantian waved his sleeve and a small bronze bird the size of a palm quietly laid in his palm. He continued, this is a bronze kite, an Earth-rank top-level spirit treasure. If you use this spirit treasure, you will be able to reach Broken Rock City in 3 days. Also, this is a teleportation talisman. If you encounter any danger that you cannot withstand, crush this talisman and I will be able to arrive at your side in an instant to help you solve your problems. Hearing this, Zhuowen could not help but be startled. A trace of warmth emerged in his heart. Lu Hantian had indeed treated him as a brother and had done a lot for him. Thank you, big brother. Zhuan respectfully cupped his hands and said, "Go. Also, make good use of the power of the demon-suppressing green coffin. The power of the blood demon inside will be of great help to you in battle. Inside this coffin are some methods to use the power of the blood demon that I have summarized over the past 100 years. It is the experience that I have accumulated from battling the blood demon. If you study it well, it might be able to help you." Nodding his head, Lu Hantian's right hand tapped on Zhuowen's forehead. Instantly, a stream of information flowed from Lu Hantian's fingertip into Zhuowen's mind. Feeling the information surging in his mind, Zhuowen's eyes could not help but reveal a trace of brilliance. What Lu Hantian had imparted to him was the secret of how to use the power of the blood demon with ease. After grasping these secrets, Zhuon would be able to better display the power of the blood demon within the demon-suppressing green coffin. This would undoubtedly allow Zhuowen's strength to rise to another level, increasing his chances of going to Broken Rock City by a lot. "Go. You just have to pay more attention on this trip." After transmitting the information, Lu Hantian waved his right hand. The bronze paper kite in his palm suddenly expanded inch by inch, turning into a giant green bird that was several feet tall. Its wingspan was 20 meters, and a sharp bird cry shook the heavens and the earth. "Then I'll take my leave first." Nodding his head, Zhuon stomped his foot and leaped onto the back of the green bird. The green bird let out a long cry, spread its wings, and soared into the sky. In an instant, it turned into a green shadow and swept towards the horizon. In the blink of an eye, it disappeared from Lu Hantian's sight. "Senior, why do you want Big Brother Zhuo to go to Broken Rock City? This is simply sending him to his death." Hong Lian came to Lu Hantian's side. Her beautiful eyes widened as she stomped her foot and said unhappily, "Do you think it's useful for me to stop him? Zhuowen's temper is even more stubborn than I was back then. Since he insists on going to save people, can you change his mind with just a few words?" Lu Hantian shook his head. Hearing this, Hong Lian went completely silent. Lu Hantian was right. Zhuowen's temper was extremely stubborn. No matter how she tried to persuade him, it was useless. Moreover, you underestimate Zhuowen too much. This child's strength is not what it looks like on the surface. This is because he is the only monstrous genius that has obtained the inheritance of the blood demon. Chapter 585. SS Broken Rock City Ruins and Baichuan Marquee Mansion. Su Chang's face was livid. He looked at the two cold corpses in the hall, his eyes filled with killing intent. One of the corpses was a blue-robed elder, and the other was a red-clothed girl. They were Su Nu and Su Mei, who had died in the open space of the 100-Year Brew restaurant. In front of the two corpses, two servants stood on one side, trembling with fear. They dared not make a sound and were very respectful. "You said that Su Nu and Mei were killed by a young man with a green coffin? Do you know the origin of that young man?" At this moment, Su Chang frowned slightly. The young man was too terrifying to be able to kill Su Nu in one move. Frankly speaking, the young man was probably a monstrous genius comparable to LV Tao. What surprised Su Chang more was that the mysterious young man was less than 20 years old. Didn't that mean that the mysterious young man's talent was more terrifying than LV Tao's? This discovery made Su Chang feel a little uneasy. When did such a terrifying young talent appear in Muqing County? Moreover, it was said that the beggar behind the mysterious young man was even more terrifying. Zhu Weng didn't even dare to fart in front of the beggar, who was suspected to be an expert in the Fourth Venerable Realm. If there was really an expert in the Fourth Venerable Realm behind the mysterious young man, Su Chang would really have a headache. Such an expert was not easy to deal with. Even Baichuan Marquee Mansion didn't want to provoke such an expert. "Marquis, what should we do now?" In the hall, the two servants were on tenterhooks. "Humph. Make a good funeral for Mei and Su Nu. In addition, let the experts of the intelligence department investigate the mysterious young man and the beggar. I want to know the origin of these two people." Waving his hand, Su Chang said cautiously. After all, Su Chang didn't dare to act rashly, especially when he heard that the beggar was suspected to be an expert in the Fourth Venerable Realm. The two servants left. Su Chang fell into deep thought and murmured, "The beggar who is suspected to be in the fourth venerable realm and the young man in the green coffin with terrifying talent. Who are these two people?" Thousands of miles up in the sky, a green shadow flashed past. It was a huge green bird with a wingspan of dozens of feet. Its speed was as fast as lightning as it flashed through the void. On the back of the blue bird, there was a cold figure quietly sitting cross-legged. It was a young man around the age of 19. He carried a green coffin on his back and had shoulder-length black hair. It was Yun who was rushing towards Broken Rock City. There are still 3 days left. During this time, I can consolidate my cultivation and practice the blood demon secret technique that Big Brother Han Tian passed down to me. As he muttered to himself, Zhuowen lightly patted the devil suppression green coffin on his back with both hands, and an unfamiliar hand seal slowly struck out from between his hands. With a creak, the lid of the devil suppression green coffin actually slowly opened up by a sliver. Boom! A monstrous wave of pressure gushed out from the demon-suppressing green coffin. The surrounding air rotated to form countless cyclones, and space seemed to be faintly collapsing. At the same time, Yun formed another hand seal. The originally surging pressure slowly dissipated, and a trace of joy appeared on Zhuowen's face. The blood demon was an ancient sacred-level creature. If nothing unexpected happened, the ancient blood demon would have been able to reach the sacred level. However, this blood demon was too unlucky. It had actually wantonly slaughtered in the Origin Chi Tower and angered everyone. As a result, before it could transform into a sacred-level creature, it was annihilated by the Ryuka Patriarch with a single move. Its vitality was greatly damaged. Even so, this ancient blood demon was still in existence at the peak of the Emperor realm. Its peak strength was probably even more terrifying than the Azure Emperor of the Azure Mystic Empire. The pressure that flowed out from it was enough to suppress most ultimate Emperor realm cultivators. The secret technique that Lu Hantian had passed on to him was to open a sliver of the demon-suppressing green coffin and use the secret technique to control the pressure that flowed out, thus suppressing the enemy. When facing an enemy, the enemy would only be able to use a portion of their strength under the pressure of the blood demon's pressure, while Zhuowen would be able to use his peak strength. This way, Zhuowen would undoubtedly be able to defeat someone stronger than him. Moreover, the more the coffin lid was opened, the more terrifying the pressure would be. If the entire demon-suppressing green coffin was opened, the pressure that would erupt would probably affect even 4 exalted realm cultivators. However, the consequence of that was that the blood demon's soul would probably be able to escape the restraints of the demon-suppressing green coffin. When Lu Hantian had passed on this secret technique, he had warned Zhuowen that the demon-suppressing green coffin could only be opened by a third. Otherwise, with Zhuowen's current strength, he wouldn't be able to suppress the blood demon at all. The blood demon would probably find an opportunity to escape. However, once Zhuowen reached the 4 exalted realm and his strength reached the Empyrean realm like Lu Hantian, he would be able to completely control the blood demon's power. At that time, Zhuowen's strength would receive an extremely terrifying increase. Although he might not be a match for an Emperor realm cultivator, it was possible for him to escape from an Emperor realm cultivator with his life. 3 days passed very quickly. Within these 3 days, Zhuowen not only grasped the basics of the blood demon's secret technique, but he also used the 2 newly obtained earth fires to fuse the 6-colored refining flame. Its power was extremely powerful and was probably comparable to a 6-wheel ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Back then, Zhuowen was also taken aback when he fused the 6-colored refining flames. Its might was truly terrifying. With the 6-colored refining flames by his side, Zhuowen was much more confident in his trip to Broken Rock City. In a dense forest 1,000 miles away from Broken Rock City, a green shadow flashed by and a huge green bird slowly descended. Zhuowen jumped down and waved his right hand. The green bird shrank to the size of a palm and was kept in his spirit ring. Looking at Broken Rock City 1,000 miles away, Zhuowen's expression became gloomy. The once prosperous and grand Broken Rock City was no longer there. At this moment, 1,000 miles away from the city was a ruin. Countless broken walls stood in great numbers and smoke filled the air. It was completely filled with a decadent and abandoned aura. Looking at the broken rock city that was no longer what it used to be, Zhuowen's eyes turned slightly red. He clenched his fists so tightly that they made cracking sounds. He never thought that the once prosperous and huge city would become like this. His heart was already filled with coldness and hatred. Marquis House of Baichuan, Su Tongyang, Yuan, will slowly settle the score with you. Zhuan muttered coldly to himself as he carefully walked towards the ruins in front of him. In the middle of the ruins, there was a square black iron wall. That iron wall should be the prison that Hong Lian mentioned. Around the prison, there were groups of armored soldiers with spears in their hands patrolling back and forth. Moreover, there was vigilance and viciousness between their brows. Looking at the vigilant expressions of the soldiers, Yuan was somewhat puzzled. Could it be that these soldiers knew that he, Yuan, had returned to save people, so they were all so heavily guarded? However, this thought was quickly overturned by Zhuan. Now, the entire Muqin County probably already believed that he, Zhuan, had died in the Blood Demon Legacy Land. It was unlikely that they would guess that he would come to save the captives in Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City. Could it be that someone else has come to save the captives? Moreover, these soldiers should have suffered a few losses already. Speaking up to this point, Zhuowen suddenly thought of a person, and that was Qiu Chou. Hong Lian had said that when Broken Rock City was destroyed, only Qiu Chou had managed to escape. Most likely, other than Zhuowen, Qiu Chou was the only one who wanted to rescue the captives. Originally, when Hong Lian said that Qiu Chou had broken out of the encirclement and escaped alone, Nguyen actually held some grudges in his heart. However, the current situation was probably different from what he had imagined. Qiu Chou was probably not escaping, but conserving his strength to save the others. There were several tens of thousands of soldiers patrolling outside the prison. Every single one of them was an elite. The weakest was at the Human King realm, while the strongest was at the peak of the Heavenly King realm. Although these soldiers weren't strong individually, when tens of thousands of them worked together, even an Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator would find it difficult to break through. Zhuowen had also observed that the soldiers had surrounded them so tightly that not even a drop of water could trickle through. It wouldn't be that easy to break through. Looks like I can only force my way through. Zhuowen took in a deep breath. He knew that the outside of the prison was heavily guarded. There was no other way except to force his way through. Silently circulating the world force within him, Zhuowen slowly adjusted his presence. Once his presence had reached its peak, it would be time for him to force his way through. Boom! Suddenly, a world-shaking tremor arose from the ruins in front of them. Zhuowen, who had been accumulating power and waiting, was also stunned by this unforeseen event. Let's go! Qiu Chou is here again. This time, we must capture him alive. This will be a great merit. Don't worry. The 5 city lords have set up an inescapable net this time. If Qiu Chou dares to come, he will definitely be captured alive. Damn it! It's best to capture Qiu Chou alive. During this period of time, this fellow has been popping out like a cockroach every day. He has killed many of our brothers. This time, he must not return alive. Immediately, the several tens of thousands of soldiers outside the prison began to move. They all gathered towards the east, and the faint voices allowed Zhuowen to understand the situation. It really is Senior Qiu. Narrowing his eyes, Zhuowen slowly dispersed the presence within his body. Instead, he withdrew his presence and silently followed behind a group of soldiers. With Zhuowen's current strength, it was a piece of cake for him to conceal his presence without being discovered. Dozens of miles to the east, there was a rather wide open space. At this moment, several tens of thousands of soldiers were gathered in this open space like a black mass of ants. In the center of the open space, a middle-aged man with a fierce expression and a disheveled figure was surrounded by the soldiers. This middle-aged man was Qiu Chou. Yuan also noticed that Qiu Chou looked dispirited and the presence within his body was extremely weak. Originally, he was at the peak of the Ultimate Emperor realm, but now, his strength had dropped to the intermediate Ultimate Emperor realm. He had most likely suffered severe internal injuries that had reduced his strength. Qiu Chou, the former dazzling genius of Broken Rock City and the strongest expert, how did he end up in such a sorry state today? Broken Rock City has been destroyed. You must be very sad. A slightly ear-piercing voice resounded in the empty space. A middle-aged man in luxurious clothes was floating in the air, looking down at the miserable Chiu below with a mocking smile on his face. Lin Yao, if it weren't for the secret support of the Marquis of Baichuan, even if the 5 super cities joined forces, you would not be a match for Broken Rock City. In my eyes, you are just a bunch of trash. Chapter 586. Black Prison. The finely dressed man floating in the air was called Lin Yao. He was the city lord of a super city called Black Iron City, which was adjacent to Broken Rock City. His strength was around the mid-ultimate emperor stage and was no match for Chiu at his peak. At this moment, there were 4 other men with powerful auras gathered behind Lin Yao. They were all middle-aged and were basically at the early ultimate emperor stage. Perhaps it was because Lin Yao was the strongest, so these 4 people basically followed his lead. These 4 people were naturally the city lords of the other 4 super cities. Their city's forces were also ranked low, so it was natural for them to follow Lin Yao's lead. You're right. With the alliance of our 5 super cities, it's indeed unlikely that we can break through Broken Rock City. What a pity! You offended the Marquis of Baichuan because of you. I have to say that you're really stupid. Lin Yao crossed his arms and looked down at Chiu with disdain. In his opinion, offending the Marquis of Baichuan was an extremely stupid act. Humph! You're just a bunch of pitiful dogs that have been used by Su Tianliang. What right do you have to laugh at me, Chiu? Why didn't the 5 of you join forces to attack my Broken Rock City back then? Now, under Su Tianliang's instigation, you're like a bunch of dogs. How disgusting! Chiu stood in the middle of the open space, his eyes full of disdain and contempt. Back then, when Broken Rock City was at its peak, the 5 of them came to give gifts every day with an extremely respectful attitude. Now that they had the support of the Marquis of Baichuan, they turned the tables. You're still so stubborn even when death is at hand? Lin Yao's face darkened when he heard Chiu's mocking words. Go! Don't kill this guy. Just capture him alive. I want to personally torture this Chiu to death. Lin Yao sneered. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Instantly, tens of thousands of soldiers charged fearlessly at Chiu under Lin Yao's command. At this moment, Chiu's face was extremely solemn. A powerful aura surged out as he shouted, Thunderous Battle Qi. Boom boom boom. Boundless Gang Qi accompanied by terrifying lightning surged out around Chiu, circling around his body, making him look dazzling and unstoppable. Astral Thunder Battle Qi was an extremely famous superior emperor tier armor skill. It was Chiu's strongest trump card. Chiu had used his strongest trump card from the very beginning. Clearly, Chiu intended to go all out. Bang bang bang. After coming in contact with Chiu's thunderous battle Qi, the 100 soldiers in the front twitched and turned into charcoal. They couldn't be more dead. Thunder Astral Battle Qi? This Chiu is going all out from the start. Looks like we still need the 5 of us to attack together. Looking at the many soldiers below who were unable to do anything to Chiu, who was in the midst of the Astral Thunder Battle Qi, Lin Yao and the other 4 city lords frowned slightly. They also felt that Chiu was a thorny problem at this moment. As soon as Lin Yao said that, the other 4 city lords nodded. Immediately, the 5 of them burst out with powerful auras and released their most powerful moves. Heavenly Court Explosive Fist. Phantom Fist Aura. 8 Extremes Crushing Palm. 6 Suns Soft Palm. Earth-Shattering Stone. 5 solemn voices rang out in the area. Then 5 different colored lights shot up into the sky. 5 terrifying attacks fell on Chiu like raindrops, as if they were going to destroy the earth. Chiu's expression grew solemn. These 5 attacks were the combined attacks of 5 ultimate third-wheel emperors. If he had been at his peak, perhaps he wouldn't have cared too much. However, due to his severe internal injuries, his strength was only on par with Lin Yao's. I can only go all out. Chiu gritted his teeth and stomped his feet. The Astral Thunder Battle Qi on the surface of his body exploded to the extreme. It was as terrifying as it materialized and wrapped around his body in layers. Boom! The 5 terrifying attacks landed on Chiao Chao's body in an instant. For a moment, terrifying lightning and 5 colored lights surged through the entire area. Thump, thump, thump. Chiao Chao groaned and retreated more than 10 steps. The astral thunder battle chi on the surface showed signs of shattering. This discovery made Chiao Chao's expression extremely gloomy. Chiao Chao, you can't block it. Break it for us. Ha! Lin Yao was overjoyed when he saw Chiao Chao retreating. He hurriedly activated the power in his body. For a moment, the 5-colored attack was several times more dazzling. It actually crushed Chiao Chao's astral thunder battle chi. Puchi! Chiao Chao spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated a few hundred steps. The astral thunder battle chi on the surface of his body was annihilated. Chiao Chao's face was extremely pale. He clutched his chest and coughed continuously. He knelt on one knee on the ground. Ha! Chiao Chao, looks like you have a day like this. Capture this guy alive. Chiao Chao is already injured. I'm afraid he won't be able to use any of his strength anymore. Lin Yao laughed wantonly. Looking at the genius that he could only look up to in the past being defeated in his hands today, Lin Yao felt a perverted pleasure in his heart. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. When the surrounding soldiers received the order, they all gathered together and walked toward Zhuwen. When the surrounding soldiers were within 5 meters of Chiao Chao, a cold light shot out from afar. With a flash of the cold light, the surrounding soldiers all had blood spurting out from their necks as they fell to the ground. As the cold light faded away, everyone discovered that there was a 10-foot-long bone spear quietly inserted into the ground beside Chiao Chao. It was naturally this bone spear that had killed so many soldiers just now. Who is it? Lin Yao's pupils shrank as he shouted in a low voice. Chiao Chao, who was kneeling on one knee on the ground, also noticed the bone spear beside him. He was startled at first, but soon his face revealed a look of pleasant surprise. He was too familiar with this bone spear. It's him? He didn't die. Ha, he didn't die. The moment he saw the bone spear, Chiao Chao laughed. He laughed without restraint. His laughter was filled with joy and relaxation. Chiao Chao's laughter also caused Lin Yao and the others to frown. They faintly discovered that the bone spear beside Chiao Chao gave them a familiar feeling. Why does this bone spear look so much like Zhuowen's tyrannical dragon scale bone spear? Could it be that the one who threw the bone spear was Zhuowen? A city lord behind Lin Yao suddenly exclaimed. As soon as these words came out, there was an uproar in the surroundings. Lin Yao's face twitched as he coldly said, "Don't talk nonsense. Zhuowen chose the blood demon inheritance. Back then, Lu Hantian fell because of the blood demon inheritance. How could this Zhuowen come out alive?" Although he said this, Lin Yao's expression had become extremely fearful. He had seen Zhuowen's terrifying performance back then. One must know that even super geniuses like Su Tianliang and Zhu Qi were defeated by this boy. His strength was truly terrifying. That's right, that Zhuowen should have fallen. This person is unlikely to be that Zhuowen. The 4 city lords behind Lin Yao agreed. Thinking of the arrogant and terrifying figure in the Vitality Tower, a trace of fear emerged in their hearts. That young man was unbelievably strong. Whether it was strength or potential, they had never seen anyone like him in their lives. Some people even predicted that as long as Zhuowen was given a certain amount of time, he would definitely surpass LV Tao. Oh, it seems that you all thought that I had fallen. But now, I'm afraid you'll be disappointed. A clear and melodious voice was slowly transmitted from the distance. Upon hearing this voice, the expressions of Lin Yao and the rest immediately froze. Their gazes shifted, only to see a young man with shoulder-length black hair and a huge green coffin on his back slowly walking over from the distant horizon. Every step he took was able to create a terrifying air wave. The hissing sound that was produced caused quite a number of people present to tense up. Zhuowen? It's really Zhuowen. Ha, I knew you wouldn't die so easily. Your life is harder than a cockroach. Chiao Chao, who was kneeling on one knee, could not help but laugh towards the sky. His face was full of joy. The faces of Lin Yao and the other 4 city lords were extremely ugly. They did not expect that Zhuowen would actually appear in front of them. Didn't that mean that Zhuan had obtained the Blood Demon inheritance? The Blood Demon inheritance, which was known as the most terrifying and powerful Blood Demon inheritance in the Vitality Tower, had really been obtained by Zhuan? This was too inconceivable. Stepping lightly in the air, Zhuan instantly arrived at the center of the empty space. With a kick of his right foot, he gently picked up the bone spear stuck in the ground. He raised his head slightly and stared coldly at Lin Yao and the other 4 city lords in the sky. "Senior Qiu, are you all right?" Zhuan asked Qiu Qiu worriedly as he stood with his spear in hand. I'm fine. Kid, you're indeed extraordinary. Even the Blood Demon inheritance could not kill you. It seems that we've all underestimated you." Qiu Qiu laughed heartily and said heartlessly, "But you have to be careful. These tens of thousands of elites, in addition to Lin Yao and the other 4 city lords, will not be easy to deal with." Qiu Qiu's expression was solemn as he said this. However, Zhuowen smiled and a carefree expression appeared on his face. Actually, Zhuowen didn't care about these people at all. With his current strength, dealing with Lin Yao and the others would be a piece of cake. What he was afraid of were the few ultimate 5-wheel Emperor realm cultivators guarding the prison. According to Hong Lian, those city lords were powerful inner sect elders of the Marquis of Baichuan's residence. Therefore, Zhuan had to be cautious. "Don't worry. This bunch of useless chickens and pottery dogs are nothing in my eyes." Zhuowen smiled warmly. However, the words that came out of his mouth caused the faces of Lin Yao and the other 4 to twitch as their expressions turned ugly. Wasn't Zhuowen a little too arrogant? Although Zhuowen was indeed very powerful, it was extremely arrogant of him to not take the 5 of them and the tens of thousands of elite soldiers seriously. "Zhuowen, aren't you a little too arrogant? So what if you're strong? You're just one person, while we have tens of thousands of people. You're the one who's going to die today." Lin Yao snorted coldly. "Is that so? Then let's try." Shaking his head, Zhuowen moved. A shadow flashed past, and before anyone could see what was going on, the 5 city lords, including Lin Yao, stopped at the same time. Chapter 587. Law Enforcement Elder and Su Nupuchi. 5 large heads flew up and blood spurted out. Lin Yao and the other warriors fell one after another, turning into 5 cold corpses. The 5 city lords were killed in seconds? How did this guy do it? The surrounding soldiers' faces became deathly pale. In the blink of an eye, the 5 high and mighty city lords had turned into 5 corpses and collapsed in front of them. This completely shocked the soldiers. Moreover, they didn't even see how Zhuowen attacked. It was just a flash, and the 5 city lords had all turned into cold corpses. An aura of panic spread among all the soldiers. "Everyone, don't be afraid. This Zhuowen is only one person and we have tens of thousands of elite soldiers. The city lords were killed and we must avenge them. Kill this guy." A general who looked like a general suddenly stood in front of the soldiers and shouted with a long spear in his hand. Although the 5 city lords were killed in seconds and this general was terrified, he had tens of thousands of elite soldiers around him. With such a large number of soldiers, he did not believe that they could not deal with Zhuowen. "Puchi." A cold light flashed and the general who was encouraging the soldiers froze. Blood spurted out and his head was separated from his body. With the death of the general, the surrounding atmosphere of fear became even more intense. All the soldiers stared at the general who was killed in seconds and they all retreated. No one dared to go forward. The young man who was carrying the green coffin was too terrifying. Whether it was their general or the 5 city lords, they could not withstand a single blow from him. What kind of strength did he need to achieve this? Qiu Chao's eyes burst out with a blazing light as he stared at Zhuowen's back. Zhuowen's strength shocked even him. It seemed that Zhuowen might have successfully obtained the Blood Demon inheritance in the Land of Inheritance. Who else dares to go forward? Or do you all want to go together? Zhuowen's bone spear was stained with blood as he looked at the soldiers around him. His clear voice rumbled in the open space like thunder. No one answered, and no one refuted. The tens of thousands of soldiers fell silent, and some of them didn't even dare to look Zhuowen in the eye. They were originally following orders. Now that the 5 city lords and generals had been instantly killed by Zhuowen, They had already fallen into a state of being without a leader. In addition to the powerful strength that Zhuowen had displayed, no one was willing to risk their lives. Who dares to behave atrociously here? While the tens of thousands of soldiers were stunned by Zhuowen, a deafening roar came from the prison in the middle of the ruins. Two whooshing sounds could be heard, and two figures stepped out from the prison, their auras surging. One of the two figures was an old man in a black robe, and the other was a young man in his 20s. At this moment, the young man was following behind the old man in the black robe with a flattering smile on his face. These two people were the law enforcement elder and the shadowy man, Su Nu, who had wanted to take away Guyu Tian and the other two people outside the Vitality Tower. Swoosh swoosh. The two of them arrived above the open space in an instant. When they saw the corpses of the 5 city lords below, their pupils constricted. The 5 city lords were all Ultimate Emperor Realm experts, but they had all died. Did you kill them? The black-robed old man's face was ugly as he stared at Zhuowen, who was holding the bone spear. His eyes were filled with killing intent. This brat was truly audacious. He actually dared to cause trouble here and even killed the 5 city lords. The old man in the black robe had spent a lot of effort to recruit the 5 city lords, but now they had been killed right under his nose. How could he not be angry and hate? Raising his head slightly, Wen sneered and said indifferently, "Yes, so what? What an audacious little bastard. How dare you cause trouble here? Don't you know the power of the Marquis of Baichuan? You'll suffer if you offend us." Su Nu immediately shouted at Zhuowen from behind the old man. In Su Nu's opinion, the young man below was so young, so he couldn't be very powerful. Now that the law enforcement elder was here, the brat was dead for sure. As a result, he needed to put on a good show before the elder. Zhuowen ignored the clown, Su Nu. Instead, he stared indifferently at the black-robed old man in the sky. He said, "There should be a few Ultimate Emperor Realm experts who aren't weaker than you in the prison. Tell them to come out as well. You aren't qualified." The old man in the black robe frowned when he heard that. His brows furrowed even more when he saw the corpses of the 5 city lords. It was very likely that the 5 city lords had been killed by the young man before him, so he dared not be careless. "Who do you think you are? You want the elders to come at you together? Who gave you the guts? There's no need for the elders to do anything. I, Su Nu, can kill you myself." What an arrogant little bastard. Su Nu immediately became furious when he sensed Zhuowen's disregard. He pointed at Zhuowen and hurled a barrage of insults and mockery at him. He didn't hold back at all with his words. "Who do I think I am? Do you think you have the right to say that?" Finally, Zhuowen slowly turned his head and stared coldly at Su Nu. An intimidating presence surged out like a volcanic eruption. The surrounding air surged and formed layers of tornadoes. Many of the soldiers in the surroundings were pushed back by Zhuowen's powerful presence. Ultimate Emperor Realm Cultivator? The moment Zhuowen's aura erupted, the black-robed elder's pupils shrank to the size of needles. His face was filled with disbelief. This youth before him was probably even younger than Lve Tao, but he had already reached the pinnacle Emperor Realm? What kind of freak was this? Su Nu's voice also came to an abrupt halt. He stared at Zhuowen below as a trace of bitterness appeared on his face. He had never imagined that this young man would actually be an ultimate 5-wheel emperor who was not any weaker than the law enforcement elder. Humph! You've reached the ultimate emperor realm at such a young age. Your talent is indeed terrifying, but I'm afraid you don't have the right to make those two in prison come out. The old man in the black robe snorted coldly. I don't have the right? Jun shook his head. He stomped his foot and instantly disappeared. Unknowingly, he had appeared behind Su Nu and the old man in the black robe. He flung the bone spear in his hand. It traversed through space and pierced Su Nu's back. Spurt! Blood spurted out from the bone spear. Su Nu's eyes widened and filled with fear. His expression gradually dimmed. He hadn't expected this young man to attack him. The black-robed old man could not help but break out in a cold sweat as he sensed the gradual loss of life around him and Zhuowen who was glaring at him from behind. He was actually unable to clearly see how Zhuowen had appeared behind him. Could it be that he was still hiding his strength? Tut, tut, tut. The old man in the black robe hurriedly retreated several hundred meters. He stared at Zhuan with extreme fear. This young man was clearly only an ultimate Emperor realm cultivator, but he gave off an unfathomable feeling. Do I have the right now? With a flick of the bone spear, Su Nu's corpse fell to the ground. Zhuan stared at the old man in the black robe 100 meters away and enunciated each word clearly. The old man in the black robe narrowed his eyes and his expression grew more solemn. However, he still had a glimmer of hope in his heart. He believed that Zhuan might be stronger than him, but not by much. There was no need to ask the two people in the prison for this kind of thing. All of you, kill this young man and our house of Marquis Baichuan will not treat you unfairly. We will even promote you. If you shrink back, you and your families will not be able to escape the pursuit of our house of Marquis Baichuan. With a cold snort, the old man in the black robe immediately shouted at the tens of thousands of soldiers below. The strength that Zhuan had displayed had indeed exceeded his expectations. However, in his opinion, with the support of tens of thousands of elite troops, Zhuan was no match for him. The tens of thousands of soldiers below all paled when they heard this. They hadn't expected the old man in the black robe to be so ruthless as to threaten them with their families. However, many of the soldiers were quite tempted by the old man's promise. The house of Marquis Baichuan was one of the super forces. If they could be promoted to the house of Marquis Baichuan, it would be an absolute honor. Kill. As long as we kill this man, we will enjoy glory, splendor, and wealth. This young man must die. For the future of our families, this young man must die. Earth-shattering roars rang out from the tens of thousands of soldiers. Under the leadership of the old man in the black robe, the morale of these soldiers was greatly boosted. Lun, what should we do? There are so many soldiers. Xiao Chao's face was filled with fear as he looked at the approaching soldiers. Just a bunch of pitiful worms who have been instigated. Zhuan shook his head. Shortly after, he stomped his foot and 4 different colored earth fires slowly swept out from his body. They were the 9 heavens thunder inferno flame, the 3000 azure lotus flame, the star flame, and the blood flame. Although Zhuan currently possessed 6 types of earth fires, he didn't want to expose the east-rising purple cloud and the 9 nether cold flame that he had just subdued. In fact, the 4-colored refining flames were enough to deal with these weak soldiers. Fuse. 4-colored refining flames. As his hands formed a seal, the 4 different colored earth fires immediately gathered in Zhuan's palms and turned into 4 flames that were constantly alternating. Boom! The 4-colored flames suddenly surged out. With Zhuan as the center, it actually formed a monstrous sea of fire that soared into the sky and spread out in all directions. What is this? Why is this flame so strange? My feet are actually being burned. It's so painful. Run, this is not a simple flame. It's not something we can deal with. If we don't run, we will die. As the sea of fire swept out, 1/3 of the soldiers, which was close to 10,000, were directly burned into ashes by the terrifying heat the moment they came into contact with the sea of fire. They died without a complete corpse. A terrifying aura spread out. The remaining soldiers screamed and fled in all directions. This young man was not human at all. The sea of fire that he released with a wave of his hand actually killed 1/3 of their forces. It was too terrifying. Chapter 588. Breaking into the prison, the black-robed elder's pupils shrank. Zhuan's strength had once again exceeded his expectations. 1/3 of the tens of thousands of elite troops had been wiped out in an instant. 4 types of earth fire? The black-robed elder involuntarily exclaimed. Boom! Seeing the fire dragon whizzing towards him, the black-robed old man shook his sleeve and a powerful energy surged out, transforming into a yuan power shield in front of him. The fire dragon smashed onto the shield, emitting a clear sound of metal clashing against metal. Humph! With a groan, the black-robed elder retreated as blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. He looked at the fire dragon in horror. The fire dragon formed by the 4-colored flames was so powerful. 5-wheel golden claw. The black-robed elder's face darkened slightly. He reached out with his claw, and a huge golden claw that was a few hundred feet long appeared behind him. It slammed down fiercely. Boom! The giant claw and the fire dragon collided. Countless flames and magma surged as a powerful shockwave spread out. The surrounding airwaves swirled and the air shook. It was like a monstrous disaster, and the two were in a deadlock. Humph! You're just a so-so. Seeing the five-wheel golden claw blocking the fire dragon, the black-robed elder let out a sigh of relief and snorted. When Zhuan had appeared behind him and Su knew like a ghost, he had thought that Zhuan's strength was far greater than his. Now it seemed that he had thought too much. Perhaps Zhuan had a powerful movement skill that allowed him to appear behind him without anyone noticing. Just a so-so? He frowned. It seemed that the black-robed elder was not weak to be able to block the four-colored flames. With a snort, Zhuan pinched his left hand and the ice Saint rune on the back of his hand lit up. A blue crystal slowly appeared. It was the body of the extreme cold ice. You can block the four-colored flames, but I don't know if you can block the four-colored lotus. Zhuan sneered and waved his left hand. The blue crystal exploded, and a boundless blue cold chi surged out. It was like maggots that crawled to the bones, merging with the fire dragon in the sky. Ci. The sound of something burning could be heard. After the blue cold air rushed in, the huge fire dragon shrank and turned into a huge four-colored lotus flower that was thousands of feet long. Rumble! The four-colored lotus flower sat in the void and then bloomed brilliantly. An earth-shattering explosion soared into the sky, dyeing the whole world into a terrifying sea of fire. Kacha! The sea of fire spread out, and a terrifying power erupted. The five-wheel golden claws were directly shattered into pieces, and a golden rain fell from the sky. The 5 rings of golden claws were broken, and the terrifying explosive force came down like a hot knife through butter, directly hitting the black-robed elder. Pucci! The black-robed elder could not resist at all. Under such terrifying power, he was like a powerless butterfly with broken wings. He fell down and smashed into the ground, creating a huge crater. Zhuan arrived at the crater in an instant. He raised his right hand and picked up the black-robed elder, who was severely injured and twitching in the crater. He said with a cold gaze, "Now, do I have the right to ask the 2 people in the prison to come out?" The black-robed elder's eyes were filled with fear, and he spat out blood. However, he still held on and said, "The 2 people in the prison are stronger than me. If you dare to kill me, you will die miserably. I don't want to listen to your nonsense. Since you don't want to say anything, I will just barge in." As he spoke, Zhuan directly carried the black-robed old man and called out to Qiu, who was standing nearby in a daze. After that, he walked towards the black prison at the center of the ruins. He wanted to see exactly what kind of trash the 2 experts that the black-robed old man spoke of were. Qiu hurriedly followed. His gaze was focused on the black-robed elder in Zhuan's hand. He still had a look of disbelief on his face. Although he knew that Zhuan was strong, he did not expect him to be this strong. The black-robed elder was the law-enforcing elder of the Marquis of Baichuan's house. His strength was at the early stage of the ultimate emperor realm. To Qiu, he was a lofty existence. But now, he had been easily defeated by Zhuan. Moreover, he was being held in his hand like a chicken. This made Qiu's heart thump. He was already filled with indescribable shock. Due to Zhuowen's intimidation just now, the soldiers around the black prison had long since fled, and it became exceptionally deserted. Standing at the entrance of the prison, Qiu said with a grave expression, "There are 2 experts guarding this prison. They were both transferred from the Marquis of Baichuan's house by Su Tianyang. It is said that both of them are at the mid-stage of the ultimate emperor realm. They are much stronger than the guy in your hand, so you have to be careful." Zhuan nodded when he heard this, and his expression became solemn. Su Tianyang really thought highly of him, Zhuan. He'd even sent 3 ultimate emperor realm experts to guard this black prison. He'd really put a lot of thought into this. Lead the way or die. Zhuowen's right hand grabbed the black-robed elder's neck. His voice was incomparably cold, and his tone was filled with dense killing intent. Sensing the violent aura from Zhuan, the black-robed elder could not help but gulp. Cold sweat covered his forehead. He knew that if he did not agree, the young man before him would definitely kill him. "If I lead the way, will you let me go?" The black-robed elder still wanted to fight for a bargaining chip. He was worried that after leading the way, Don would directly kill him. "You have the right to negotiate with me. Either lead the way or die right now." Zhuowen's tone was extremely unyielding. The black-robed elder's eyes narrowed. He snorted coldly, "Put me down first. I'll lead the way." Nodding, Don released his grip and said indifferently, "Then lead the way quickly." The black-robed old man didn't hesitate and led Zhuowen into the prison. With Zhuowen glaring at him from behind, the black-robed old man didn't dare to act rashly. The young man behind him was much more terrifying than him. If he acted rashly, he wouldn't be able to keep his life. "I can't compare to the two people in the prison. If they attack, both Qiuqiu and Zhuowen will die. At that time, I will naturally be able to escape." Thinking of this, the black-robed elder did not have much resentment. He began to lead the way seriously. At this moment, he placed all his hopes on the two people in the prison. The internal structure of the black prison was quite complicated. There were many corridors along the way, like a maze. According to the black-robed elder, the black prison was divided into 3 floors. The first 2 floors were mainly used for the soldiers to rest, and the third floor was the important place to hold the prisoners. Under Zhuowen's urging, the black-robed elder directly led the 2 of them through the first 2 floors and arrived at the 3rd floor. At the junction of the 2nd and 3rd floors was a long corridor. The corridor was pitch black and looked quite gloomy. "Walk through this corridor. At the end of the corridor is the place where the prisoners are held." The black-robed elder pointed at the corridor in front of him with his right hand and said indifferently, "Then you continue to lead the way." Zhuowen said slowly. The black-robed elder nodded. The moment he turned around and entered the corridor, a strange look flashed across his eyes. The footsteps of the 3 people slowly sounded in the deep corridor. It sounded strange and loud. Finally, a speck of light appeared at the end of the corridor. The 3 of them immediately sped up. The moment they walked out of the corridor, an ominous premonition rose from the bottom of Zhuowen's heart. Soon after, the sound of something tearing through the air sounded out one after another. "Danger!" Zhuowen shouted loudly. The strong sense of danger made Zhuowen involuntarily pat the demon-suppressing green coffin on his back. Immediately, the demon-suppressing green coffin expanded several times and directly stood in front of Zhuowen and Qiuqiu. Ding ding ding! The ear-piercing sound of metal clashing continuously resounded in the entire space. Only then did Zhuowen and Qiuqiu realize that the sky above them was filled with arrows like a rain of rain. Every single arrow was suffused with a ghastly cold light, and its surface was overflowing with light. Just by looking at the aura it emitted, it was actually an Earth-rank spirit treasure. Even Zhuowen couldn't help but be shocked when he was enveloped by so many Earth-rank spirit treasure arrows. With so many Earth-rank soul treasure arrows, even a 5th-wheel ultimate emperor would probably be doomed if they were hit. If it were not for Zhuowen's quick reaction, he and Qiuqiu really would have suffered heavy losses. Damn it, that bastard! Qiuqiu's eyes were currently spitting fire. He could not help but curse fiercely. Needless to say, the main culprit who had led them here was the black-robed elder. The black-robed elder had never planned to bring them to the place where the captives were kept. Instead, he had lured them to such a dangerous place. He was probably planning to capture the 2 of them in one fell swoop. The rain of arrows lasted for a quarter of an hour before the space returned to silence. Zhuowen slowly put away the demon-suppressing green coffin. His expression was not very good. He had not expected the black-robed elder to be so bold as to actually dare to trick him. This was a sealed space surrounded by iron walls. There were thumb-sized holes in the walls. The rain of arrows should have come from these holes. The quality of your coffin is pretty good. It can actually block the attack of so many arrows. The black-robed elder crossed his arms on the other side of the space. He stared in surprise at the unscathed Zhuowen and Qiuqiu. The rain of arrows were all Earth-rank soul treasures, but they had all been blocked by the strange green coffin in front of Zhuowen. It seemed that the green coffin was not simple. At the same time, There were two other elders of similar age standing beside the black-robed elder. One of them had a long beard and looked amiable, while the other elder had a cold expression. These two elders should be the palace elders that Su Tianliang had arranged to guard this prison. Moreover, they were both mid-stage Ultimate Emperor realm experts. They were much stronger than the black-robed elder. You should be Zhuowen, right? Other than Qiu Chou, only you, the monstrous genius Zhuowen, would be able to come all the way here to save Vine Armor City and Broken Rock City. The amiable elder smiled as he stared at Zhuowen. It seems that you know quite a lot. Zhuowen was rather surprised. There weren't many people who knew that he, Zhuowen, had broken through the Essence Tower. This amiable old man was able to guess his identity just by guessing. It seemed that he wasn't simple. I really didn't expect this. You actually came out alive after entering the Blood Demon inheritance. It seems that your luck is not bad. Chapter 589. The Fiends of Yin and Yang. Actually, the amiable-looking old man was rather shocked when he guessed that the young man before him was Zhuowen. He hadn't expected Zhuowen to actually make it out of the Blood Demon's inheritance. The pupils of the black-robed old man and the cold and indifferent old man shrunk upon hearing this. The two of them did not expect that Zhuowen had actually survived. This involuntarily caused the two of them to be shocked. However, there was more killing intent in their hearts. Zhuowen had killed Su Liang and caused Su Tianliang to miss out on an ancient inheritance. He had made the house of Marquis Baichuan a laughingstock in the battle for the Vitality Tower. Everyone in the house of Marquis Baichuan didn't have a good impression of Zhuowen. The amiable-looking old man is called Su Sheng, and the cold-looking old man is called Su Ming. They're rather famous in the house of Marquis Baichuan. They're known as the Fiends of Yin and Yang. Zhuowen, you have to be careful. Although they're only at the mid-stage of the Ultimate Emperor realm, they seem to have cultivated some sort of combination technique called the Yin-Yang lightning technique. It's said that they can use Yin-Yang lightning and fuse them into a terrifying special lightning. The Fiends of Yin and Yang once fought against a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator without losing. Their existences comparable to a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Qiu Chou looked at the two old men in front of him fearfully as he introduced them to Zhuowen in a low voice. Clearly, the Fiends of Yin and Yang were extremely famous. Otherwise, Qiu Chou wouldn't be so cautious. A combination comparable to a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator? Zhuowen didn't dare to be careless when he saw how cautious Qiu Chou was. We originally thought that you would die in the Blood Demon's inheritance. It looks like we've underestimated you. However, since you've delivered yourself to our doorstep today, it's a perfect opportunity for us to catch you all in one fell swoop. If we bring your head back to the house of Marquis Baichuan, the eldest prince and the marquis will probably be happy. Su Ming licked his lips with a cold expression. His voice was filled with cruelty. They had naturally seen the battle between the black-robed old man and Zhuowen. In their opinion, Zhuowen was quite strong, but he was only comparable to a mid-stage ultimate king. When the Yin-Yang fiends joined forces, they weren't even afraid of a late-stage Ultimate Emperor realm cultivator. Taking down Zhuowen would be a piece of cake. Su Sheng, you don't need to talk nonsense with this little bastard. Let's just take him down together. It's said that the Crown Prince loves to torture people to death. If we capture this Zhuowen, cripple his cultivation, and then hand him over to the Crown Prince, I'm afraid we'll be able to earn more merits. Su Ming chuckled, and his gaze was filled with disdain toward Zhuowen. As far as he was concerned, taking down Zhuowen was merely a trivial matter. You're right. If we take down Zhuowen and Qiu Chou, we'll have enough people. When the time comes, we can go back and report on our mission. Su Sheng nodded with a smile. The two of them exchanged questions and answers. They didn't take Zhuowen seriously at all. Perhaps in their opinion, although Zhuowen's strength wasn't bad, it might not be enough to deal with them. Therefore, they didn't care too much about Zhuowen. Zhuowen only quietly watched the conversation between Su Sheng and Su Ming. His face was filled with a cold smile. These two people were really confident. They were actually openly discussing how to torture Su Tianliang after capturing him. This made Zhuowen feel even more disgusted with the house of Marquis Baichuan. Shaking his head, Jun took a step forward and instantly activated the lightning serpent wings and lightning serpent wings. His entire body turned into a ball of lightning as his speed soared to the extreme. He actually swept behind Su Sheng and Su Ming. Su Sheng and Su Ming were engrossed in their conversation and didn't pay attention to Zhuowen's actions at all. At this moment, the loud rumbling of thunder immediately attracted their attention. When they noticed that Zhuowen had unknowingly appeared behind them, they were instantly shocked. At this moment, the black-robed old man standing behind Su Sheng and Su Ming looked at Zhuowen with a face full of terror. He couldn't help but shout, "Elders, quickly save me! How dare you!" Su Sheng and Su Ming shouted at the same time. Their palms suddenly blasted behind them in an attempt to stop the audacious Jun. Unfortunately, Jun was too fast. With 2 pairs of lightning wings, Zhuowen's speed was much faster than an ordinary Ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator. Lightning flashed through the air and instantly dodged Su Sheng and Su Ming's attacks. He instantly arrived before the black-robed old man and extended his right hand, wanting to lift the old man up. "It won't be that easy to kill me." A trace of coldness flashed through the black-robed old man's eyes. He knew that as long as he blocked Zhuowen's attack, Su Sheng and Su Ming would be able to arrive and save him. Quintuple Wheel Vajra Claw. The black-robed old man once again used his trump card armor skill. An enormous golden claw tore through the air and pressed down toward Jun. "The same move doesn't have the slightest effect on me." Zhuowen sneered. All 360 acupoints in his body opened at the same time. Instantly, his entire body was filled with blazing golden light. He had used the nirvana of the Grand Sun, break. A crisp crack resounded as the golden claw was directly shattered. The black-robed old man let out a muffled groan and spat out a mouthful of blood. He hurriedly begged for mercy. "Spare me. I didn't mean to bring you here. As long as you spare me, I'll take you to where the real captives are. Do you think I'll still believe you? I originally intended to let you go, but unfortunately, you didn't seize the opportunity. What's the use of regretting it now?" Zhuowen's voice was icy cold like 10,000-year-old ice. The black-robed old man was directly blasted into a bloody mist as the golden fist smashed down. He was completely dead. "Damn it! You Zhuowen, you actually dare to kill someone right under our noses. You're really tired of living. Die for this old man." At this moment, Su Sheng and Su Ming arrived as well. They both struck out with their palms. A powerful force surged out and blasted down on Zhuowen's head. The force was so powerful that it shattered the space. Zhuowen's expression changed slightly. He stomped his feet and used his lightning wings to transform into a lightning shadow. He just happened to dodge this terrifying attack. "You run faster than a mouse." Su Ming's eyes widened in anger as he snorted coldly. The lightning shadow flashed and Zhuowen returned to Chiu Chou's side. He looked at them and transmitted his voice to Chiu Chou. "Senior Chiu Chou, leave this place and find where the real captives are. Leave these 2 to me." Chiu Chou was stunned when he heard this. He hesitated for a moment before saying, "Are you sure you can deal with these 2? If Su Ming and Su Sheng join forces, their strength can rival a late-stage Ultimate Emperor Realm martial artist. That black-robed old man can't compare to them." "Don't worry. Even the Blood Demon's inheritance couldn't kill me. Do you think these 2 old farts can kill me? You should hurry and find my grandfather and the others. I'm afraid these 2 have a backup plan and will transfer them away. When that time comes, I'm afraid it'll be difficult to find them." Zhuowen's tone was somewhat anxious. He was extremely worried about Zhuo Xiangding and the others. With Su Tianliang's hatred for him, the Zhuo family would probably be tortured. He only hoped that Zhuo Xiangding and his family would be fine. "Alright, then be careful. If you can't defeat them, it's best to escape. Don't risk your life." Chiu Chou knew what Zhuowen was thinking. He also knew that with his current strength, he would be a burden if he stayed by Zhuowen's side. Therefore he agreed decisively. With that, Chiu Chou stomped his foot and turned around to rush towards the tunnel behind him. "Where do you think you're going? Today, the 2 of you can forget about leaving this place." Su Ming glared and suddenly slapped out with his palm. He wanted to block Chiu Chou's back. "With me here, do you think you'll succeed?" Zhuowen sneered. He swung the bone spear in his hand and used the ascending dragon style to block Su Ming's attack. Su Ming also retreated because of this. His gaze became serious as he looked at Zhuowen. This kid is not simple. Su Ming, be careful. Su Sheng frowned slightly. Although Zhuowen's aura was only at the initial stage of the ultimate 5 wheels emperor stage, the strength he displayed was completely extraordinary. He was actually able to force Su Ming back with a single move. This kid is indeed a little strange. Let's join forces. Su Ming also nodded. In his heart he began to fear Zhuowen. Looks like it was not a fluke that this person was able to kill the black-robed old man in front of their eyes. Instead, he was truly capable. Yin and Yang lightning, create the world. Su Sheng and Su Ming shouted in a low voice. 2 different colored lightnings surged out from their bodies. White lightning surged out from Su Sheng's body while black lightning surged out from Su Ming's body. The black and white lightning intertwined and turned into a spinning disk of lightning. For a moment, the black and white lightning wreaked havoc in the entire space. The powerful force almost collapsed the surrounding iron walls. Its power was extremely terrifying. There aren't many people who can make us Yin and Yang fiends use Yin and Yang lightning. Back then, we've killed many cultivators of the same level and even seriously injured an ultimate 5 wheels emperor stage cultivator. It's not too late for you to regret now. As long as you break your own arms, we'll spare your life and take you back to the Marquis House of Baichuan. How about it? Su Sheng was still smiling and his tone was amiable. However, the words he said were extremely vicious. Asking him to break his own arms and go back to the Marquis House of Baichuan with them was no different from suicide. Are the 2 of you pigs? Break your own arms and go back to the Marquis House of Baichuan with you? Even a pig wouldn't agree to this condition. Or is your brain worse than a pig's? Zhuowen looked at Su Sheng as if he was looking at an idiot. He looked at the smiling Su Sheng and said something that almost made Su Sheng choke. Zhuowen's mouth was too venomous. He actually called the 2 of them pigs. It seems like you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit. Then we can only take your corpse back. What a pity. We originally wanted to let you live a little longer. You're courting death. Su Ming sneered. The 2 of them looked at each other and formed a complicated seal with their hands. The Yin and Yang Tai Chi lightning in the sky cut through the void and swept directly toward Jun. Courting death? I don't think so. Looking at the menacing Yin and Yang Tai Chi lightning, Jun sneered and patted the green coffin on his back with his right hand. Creak. Chapter 590. The Zhua family that was taken away as the terrifying pressure descended, the entire space froze. Su Sheng and Su Ming's faces were still filled with shock. This terrifying pressure actually made them tremble with fear. The Taiji Yin Yang thunderbolt in the air was completely frozen by this pressure. Then, it exploded into countless black and white thunderbolts. What? The Taiji Yin Yang thunderbolt was broken just like that? Su Ming and Su Sheng were shocked when they saw the black and white thunderbolts explode from the pressure. How could this pressure be so terrifying? It wasn't something that an ultimate Emperor Realm cultivator could possess. Thud thud thud. The crisp sound of footsteps slowly rang out. Zhuan slowly walked over with the green coffin on his back. His hair was disheveled like stars, and his eyes were like the moon. The pressure he exuded was like a ferocious beast. It gradually pressed down on the 2 of them like a towering mountain. It actually made them feel as if their movements were stagnant. Damn it. We can't let this guy get close. Otherwise, this pressure will suppress our strength to the greatest extent. Let's work together to get rid of this guy. Su Sheng could already feel the threat from Zhuan. He also realized that the pressure was becoming more and more terrifying as Zhuan approached. If they let Zhuan get close to them, they probably wouldn't even be able to use 70% of their strength. Taiji Yin Yang thunderbolt, overturn the world. The 2 of them growled again. Their hand seals suddenly changed. 2 black and white thunderbolts that were even more terrifying than before suddenly surged out. They formed a Taiji Yin Yang diagram that was several hundred meters tall in the air. Surging black and white thunderbolts revolved around the Taiji yin-yang diagram and wantonly spread out. You must die this time. The two of them clearly intended to fight with their lives on the line. They could feel the terror of the pressure released by Zhuowen. If Zhuowen was allowed to get close to them, the possibility of them losing was too high. Zhuowen still walked over leisurely. He could feel the fear on Su Sheng and Su Ming's faces. Zhuowen also increasingly felt the terror of the blood demon's pressure. He had only opened a crack, but it was enough to make Su Sheng and Su Ming, both Ultimate Emperor realm cultivators, so cautious. However, Zhuowen also discovered that a portion of the pressure was also acting on him. However, compared to Su Sheng and Su Ming, it was much smaller. No wonder Brother Han Tian only allowed me to open a third of the demon-suppressing green coffin. It turns out that there are certain side effects, and 1/3 should be the limit that I can endure. Recalling Lu Hantian's advice, Zhuowen couldn't help but nod. Lu Hantian was worthy of being an Empyrean powerhouse. He had seen through Zhuowen's depths with a single glance and put forward the most appropriate suggestion. Boom! Above the void, after the yin-yang Tai Chi thunderbolt was formed, it smashed down on Zhuowen like layers of mountains. The surrounding space was torn apart, and it was filled with surging electricity. It was unstoppable. Raising his head, Zhuowen revealed a mocking smile. He wanted to see just how strong the blood demon's pressure was today. Zhuowen's right hand patted the green coffin on his back once more, and the coffin lid opened by a sliver. This time, the coffin lid opened by 1/10, and a pressure that was several times more terrifying than the previous one surged out, crushing down. Zhuowen also felt his body sink, and his knees buckled slightly. His guess was right. The more the coffin lid was opened, the more terrifying the pressure he had to endure. Boom, boom, boom. The yin-yang Tai Chi thunderbolt that was hundreds of feet long came crushing down. However, the moment Zhuowen increased the pressure, the yin-yang Tai Chi thunderbolt actually collapsed inch by inch, turning into fine electricity. Plop. When the extremely terrifying pressure descended, Su Sheng and Su Ming were inexplicably shocked. They involuntarily knelt on one knee on the ground, and could only use about half of their strength. The pressure was so fierce that it made the two of them feel terrified. How is this possible? How can you, an ultimate five-wheel emperor, have such a terrifying pressure? How did you do it? How did you do it? Su Ming's eyes widened in disbelief as he stared at Zhuowen, who was slowly walking over. The two of them wanted to raise their hands to block, but the pressure on their bodies was so terrifying that they couldn't even breathe or exert any strength. They could only watch as Zhuowen's bone spear ruthlessly smashed into their chests. Spitting out mouthfuls of blood, the two of them flew back at the same time, smashing into the iron wall behind them. They smashed into a human-shaped pit, and their entire bodies were embedded in it. The two of you should go down to the underworld and ask such questions. Shaking his head, Zhuowen's figure flashed past, and the bone spear turned into a cold light in midair, sweeping past the two's necks. Blood immediately spurted out, but Su Sheng and Su Ming could only hold their necks tightly, looking at Zhuowen with unwillingness. They were really unwilling to accept this. They hadn't even used their full strength, but they were actually killed by Zhuowen just like that. This loss was really too humiliating. Bang! Putting away his spear, Zhuowen patted the coffin with his right hand, and the coffin lid, which was originally opened by 1/10, slowly closed. Before Su Sheng and Su Ming died, they also saw the green coffin slowly closing on Zhuowen's back, and the pressure that disappeared as the green coffin closed. The two of them finally knew where the pressure had come from. It turned out that it was the inconspicuous coffin on Zhuowen's back. What exactly is that green coffin on Zhuowen's back? What kind of monster is sealed in that green coffin? Why does it produce such a terrifying pressure? This was the only question that Su Sheng and Su Ming had before they died, and it was also their last question. Looks like the power of the blood demon is your biggest gain from this trip to the inheritance of the blood demon. This blood demon is indeed an ancient saint-level creature. If you can make good use of this pressure, you can easily defeat someone stronger than you. Suddenly, Xiao Hei's voice, which had been silent for a long time, rang out in his mind. Xiao Hei, you finally spoke. You didn't respond all this time. Could it be that you've been refining the blood demon's origin all this time? Hearing Xiao Hei's voice, Zhuan couldn't help but ask excitedly. Yes. This dragon lord has been in a semi-conscious state all this time, refining the blood demon's origin. The blood demon's origin is indeed enormous. This dragon lord spent a month and only absorbed a small part of it. It's really powerful. Xiao Hei said again, her voice filled with joy. Then, if you completely refine it, will you be able to fully recover? Zhuan knew that Xiao Hei's identity was extremely unusual. She was a freak that had survived from the ancient times. Her strength at her peak was probably extremely terrifying. If Xiao Hei could recover to her peak, wouldn't she be able to carry him around? What are you smiling foolishly for? Although the blood demon's origin is powerful, to completely recover this dragon lord's origin is like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. You still have to collect sacred runes in the future. Those things are the most important to this dragon lord. Xiao Hei snorted. All right then. Hearing this, Zhuan was slightly disappointed. However, he was even more curious about Xiao Hei. The blood demon's origin was so enormous, but to Xiao Hei, it was like a cup of water on a burning cart of firewood. Then, wouldn't Xiao Hei be a creature of a much higher level than the blood demon? Zhuan, I've already found everyone. Quickly come and join us, okay? Suddenly, an imprint on Zhuowen's palm lit up. This was the sound transmission imprint that Qiu Chou had left on his hand. It could be used to transmit messages over long distances. Hearing this, Zhuowen's face lit up with joy. He took a step forward and rushed towards the place that Qiu Chou had marked. It turned out that the place where the prisoners were imprisoned was not on the 3rd floor, but on the 1st floor. The black-robed old man who had led the way had no intention of bringing them to the place where the prisoners were imprisoned. On the contrary, he had planned to kill Zhuowen and Qiu Chou. However, the black-robed old man had never imagined that Zhuowen would actually be so strong. Not only had he lost his life, even Su Sheng and Su Ming had perished at Zhuowen's hands. This was truly a double loss. After passing through many corridors, Zhuan arrived at the 1st floor and quickly found the place that Qiu Chou had mentioned. This was an extremely remote room. It was very narrow inside, cold and damp. Rows of cages had been set up in this room. At this moment, these cages had basically been destroyed. At this moment, a group of people had gathered in the center of the room. The person in the lead was Qiu Chou. Behind Qiu Chou, Zhuan saw many familiar faces, such as Ouyang Yuntu, Ouyang Hanxian, Gu Yutian, Gu Xian, and others. However, after gradually sweeping past the faces of this group of people, Zhuowen's heart slowly sank. This was because he realized that in this group of people, other than the people from Broken Rock City, there were also people from the governor's mansion of Rot-Tan Armor City and the Huban sect. However, there was no one from his Zhuo family. Qiu Chou came to Zhuan with a face full of shame and said, I'm sorry, your Zhuo family isn't here. It said that Su Tunyang brought them back to the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion alone. I'm afraid they're in a bad situation. Boom. Hearing this, Zhuowen's mind went blank. He also didn't expect that his Zhuo family would be taken away by Su Tianliang. With the degree of hatred that Su Tianliang had for him, he didn't know what he would do to his family. Su Tianliang. Clenching his fists, the veins on Zhuowen's forehead bulged. His voice was like a beast's roar. This Su Tianliang had repeatedly challenged Zhuowen's bottom line. This had already caused Zhuowen's heart to be filled with monstrous killing intent. This person must be killed by Zhuowen. Senior Qiu, when did Su Tianliang take our Zhuo family? Taking a deep breath, Zhuowen asked in a low voice. Half a month ago. With Su Tianliang's speed, he should have arrived at the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion in the prefecture capital. Zhuowen, don't do anything stupid. The Marquis of Baichuan's mansion is extremely powerful in the prefecture capital. Don't be impulsive and barge into the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion. Qiu Chou also felt Zhuowen's anger. He was worried that Zhuowen would let his emotions affect his decisions and go to the Marquis of Baichuan's mansion alone. That was simply courting death. Chapter 591. Mysterious Youth. Zhuowen shook his head. He had to go to the Baichuan Marquis mansion this time. He didn't care about Su Tianliang, but this guy shouldn't have dared to touch the Zhuo family. How could Zhuowen tolerate it? Senior Chiu, you don't have to worry about me. I won't be impulsive when I go to the Baichuan Marquis mansion. However, I won't care about the Zhuo family. You should settle the wounded around first. After instructing Chiu, Yuan waved his right hand and took out the bronze paper kite given by Lu Hantian. It flashed with a green light and turned into a giant green bird. Zhuan jumped up and looked at the people below silently. Then, he turned into a green shadow and disappeared into the sky. Chiu could only nod helplessly. He knew Zhuowen's stubborn character very well. Moreover, Zhuowen's strength was much more terrifying than his. Even if he wanted to stop him, he wouldn't be able to. As the green shadow flashed, Zhuowen's speed soared to the extreme. His eyes were bloodshot and full of murderous intent. Su Tianliang had completely touched Zhuowen's bottom line. This time, Zhuowen must kill this person. Suddenly, Zhuowen frowned. He felt a sharp gust of wind behind him. He quickly pressed his palm on the back of the bronze paper kite and controlled the green bird to change direction. Bang! The strong wind swept past the green bird. Only then did Zhuowen realize that this strong wind was actually a huge saber chi that was dozens of feet long. The blade chi swept across and blasted the dense forest below. Suddenly, it was earth-shattering. Hundreds of miles of dense forest collapsed and turned into a huge bear pit. Who is it? How dare you stop me? Seeing that horrifying saber chi, Zhuowen's eyelids twitched. He stopped 100 meters away and looked behind him with a cold gaze. He saw a stout man carrying a 3-meter-long saber on his back walking through the air. Moreover, as this person walked through the air, countless saber chi formed around his body. The saber chi raged and turned into a storm of saber chi that surrounded this person. This person was definitely an expert. Furthermore, he was an extremely horrifying expert. To think that he was able to produce such a horrifying saber chi with just a raise of his hand. This was the manifestation of a saber technique that had reached the pinnacle. What shocked Zhuowen even more was that he couldn't see through the aura of this man with a huge blade. This could only mean one thing, and that was that this man's cultivation was far above Zhuowen's. This person is at least a 6-wheel ultimate emperor. Zhuowen became more and more fearful as he looked at the burly young man. This person's age was about the same as Lve Tao's, but the aura he exuded was even more terrifying than Lve Tao's. This person was definitely a genius more terrifying than Lve Tao. When did such a terrifying genius appear in the house of Marquis Qin? Who are you? Why are you stopping me? Zhuowen asked in a low voice. 100 meters away, the young man with a huge blade on his back slowly stopped. Only then did Zhuowen carefully observe his appearance. This person wore clothes made of coarse cloth. His exposed skin was the color of wheat. His muscles were bulging and he was tall. However, the huge blade on his back was even larger than his body. It looked extremely exaggerated. The young man with the huge blade crossed his arms. He looked at Zhuowen with a burning gaze. He said loudly, "I never thought that a monstrous genius like you would appear in the tiny Muqing County. You've reached the 5-wheel ultimate emperor at the age of 19. Your talent is very good. You can rival the geniuses of the imperial family." This person's voice was coarse and wild. Zhuowen frowned when he heard this. From this person's words, this person didn't seem to be from Muqing County. Furthermore, he mentioned the imperial family. Could this person be a genius from the imperial capital county? Everyone knew that the greatest power in the Qingxian Empire was undoubtedly the imperial family of the imperial capital county. Emperor Qing was the protector of the imperial family. The imperial family's position was undoubtedly extremely stable and powerful. However, this person spoke of the imperial family as if it was only natural. He was probably a genius from a great power in the imperial capital county. However, Zhuowen was puzzled. Why would such a genius come to Muqing County? Moreover, he even tried to stop him. I said, "Why are you stopping me?" Zhuowen didn't want to talk nonsense with the young man with the huge blade and said coldly, "You've mastered spear essence, right? Just now, when you were fighting in the ruins of Broken Rock City, I was watching from a distance. You're a martial artist who has mastered the essence of spear essence. Furthermore, you've mastered spear essence, which is mainly offensive. Speaking of this, the young man with the huge blade's gaze became extremely hot. It was as if he had found a favorite toy, which made Zhuowen's scalp tingle. However, the words of the young man with the huge blade shocked Zhuowen. This person was indeed not simple. He actually didn't notice this person nearby when he was in the ruins of Broken Rock City. So what if I am? What do you want to do? Did the house of Marquis Baichuan send you to kill me? Zhuowen said coldly as he was secretly vigilant. Unexpectedly, the young man with the huge blade shook his head and said, I don't know the house of Marquis Baichuan that you speak of. I accidentally passed by the ruins of Broken Rock City and saw that you've actually mastered spear essence. So my hands itched and I wanted to ask you for advice. Speaking of this, the young man with the huge blade rubbed his hands and revealed a trace of excitement on his face. Hearing this, Zhuowen couldn't help but be speechless. It turned out that this person was a martial arts fanatic. He actually came to ask for advice because of such a trivial matter. Zhuowen was actually somewhat speechless. I have an urgent matter now and need to rush back to the county capital. So, I can't accompany you now. Zhuowen cupped his fists and patted the green bird with his right hand. He intended to leave this place, but a blade chi flashed through the void and actually blocked Zhuowen's path. I don't care if you have an urgent matter or not. Today, I must ask you for advice. Otherwise, don't even think about leaving. The young man with the huge blade shook his head and said with a calm expression, You won't let me go? Just by you? Looking at the young man with the huge blade repeatedly blocking him, Nguyen was also annoyed. Now that the Zhuo family's clansmen had been taken away by Su Tianliang, if he was a step late, his clansmen would be in more danger. How could he waste time here? Just by me? Show me your spear intent. I haven't seen anyone outside of the Imperial City master this kind of intent realm for a long time. Can you broaden my horizons? The young man with the huge blade's eyes blazed. Perhaps because of his excitement, the terrifying blade chi around him began to become chaotic and dense. If a warrior with weaker strength was involved in this blade chi, he would certainly die without a burial place. Zhuowen let out a sigh of relief. He knew that the young man with the huge blade in front of him was a martial arts fanatic. In other words, he was a one-track-minded guy. Talking to such a person would be a waste of energy. Zhuowen patted the green coffin behind him with his right hand and directly opened it by 1/10. A terrifying pressure burst out, like a lofty mountain, and directly crushed towards the young man with the huge blade. This pressure. How can it be so strong? Feeling the sudden pressure, the young man with the huge blade narrowed his eyes and cried out in surprise. This pressure was unbelievably strong. It wasn't something that a human warrior could emit. But soon, he laughed heartily and said, This is the feeling. You're really not ordinary. Although you're a little weak, you have a lot of trump cards. I like it, huh? The young man with the huge blade laughed and stomped his foot. An even more terrifying blade chi surged out from his body and directly overshadowed the blood demon's pressure. So strong. 1/10 of the pressure was something that even a fifth-wheel Ultimate Emperor Realm expert couldn't withstand, but this person had directly broken it and looked so relaxed. Just how strong was this person? I can't waste time with him. I have to hurry to the Imperial City. With a cold snort, Zhuowen slapped the green coffin again. This time, he directly opened it by 1/5 of the gap. Instantly, the pressure in the surroundings increased by several times, instantly breaking through the terrifying saber chi around the young man with the saber. Interesting. It can even strengthen. How interesting. The young man's body sank, but he smiled even more happily. He pulled out the giant saber on his back, and a mysterious and terrifying aura swept out along with the saber chi. It actually blocked the pressure that had been strengthened several times. Concept? This guy has also mastered a concept. What he used just now was blade intent. The moment the young man with the huge blade pulled out his huge blade, Toan frowned. This young man with the huge blade was very strong. He actually gave off the feeling of facing a mountain. This person was definitely a monstrous genius, far more monstrous than LV Tao. Awesome! Awesome! The young man with the huge blade shook his right hand, and the huge blade in his hand poured out like a curtain of rain, faintly showing signs of overpowering the pressure. Zhuowen's expression changed abruptly. He said to himself, I can't drag this out any longer. I have to leave quickly. Thinking of this, Zhuowen directly controlled the bronze paper kite. With a whoosh, it turned into a green shadow and disappeared into the horizon. Its speed was almost as fast as it could be. Break, break, break. At the same time, the young man with the huge blade slashed out 10 times in a row, each strike fiercer than the last. Although it looked like an ordinary attack, with the support of the mysterious blade intent, its power was terrifying to the extreme. The surrounding pressure was instantly broken by the terrifying blade force. The young man with the huge blade soared into the sky and laughed wildly. Interesting, interesting. You're clearly just a 5-wheel ultimate emperor, but you can actually exert such a terrifying pressure. Let's continue to fight. Where is he? After breaking through the pressure, the young man with the huge blade laughed heartily. Just as he was about to exchange a few more moves with Zhuowen, he suddenly realized that the surroundings were empty. Zhuowen had already disappeared. That guy just said that he had urgent matters to attend to in the prefecture capital. Could it be that he really went to the prefecture capital? No, I must go find him again. It's rare to meet an opponent with such a temper. I can't miss this chance. With that, the young man with the huge blade put away his huge blade. With a stomp of his foot, countless blade chi swept out. His entire body turned into a ray of flowing light and disappeared into the horizon. Zhuowen knew that this fellow was like a sticky candy, sticking to him without letting go. How would he feel? 2 days later, Zhuowen, who was riding the bronze paper kite, finally arrived at the prefecture capital. He knew that it was impossible to break into Marquis Baichuan's residence by himself. He could only ask Lu Hantian for help. Moreover, in these 2 days, Zhuowen seemed to have comprehended something. With the help of the demon-suppressing green coffin, his strength had broken through to the mid-stage of the 5-wheel ultimate emperor realm. Chapter 592. Entering the house of Marquichin in the hall on the top floor of the 100-Year Brew restaurant, Lu Hantian was sitting with his legs crossed and leaning against a chair. There were delicacies on both sides of the armrest, while Elder Zhuang was rubbing Lu Hantian's shoulders and back with a flattering smile. Oh, kid, you're back. You're quite fast. It's only been 5 days and you're back. Little Wang Wang, go and greet Master Zhua. Lu Hantian pointed at Zhuowen and said to Elder Zhuang behind him, Greetings, Master Zhua. Elder Zhuang did not dare to be negligent and hurriedly arrived in front of Zhuowen. His face was filled with flattering smiles as he nodded and bowed. His expression was extremely respectful. Looking at Elder Zhuang's respectful appearance, Yuan was too lazy to pay attention to him. He only responded indifferently and arrived in front of Lu Hantian. He said solemnly, Big brother Hanan, I'm afraid I'll need your help this time. Seeing Zhuowen like this, Lu Hantian no longer sloppily sat up and said, What's wrong? Didn't you save your family and friends? I saved a portion of them. However, my Zhua family was brought back to the Baichuan Marquis Mansion by Su Tianliang. I'm afraid I'll have to barge into the Baichuan Marquis Mansion this time. Zhuowen sighed. Hearing this, Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes and shook his head. The Baichuan Marquis Mansion is not simple. In my opinion, if you barge in alone, I'm afraid the odds are against you. Frowning slightly, Yuan did not expect that even Lu Hantian would say this. Could it be that there was an even more terrifying expert in the Baichuan Marquis Mansion other than Su Chang? I must barge into the Baichuan Marquis Mansion. My family is still in Su Tianliang's hands. I can't ignore it. Yuan shook his head and said somewhat stubbornly. Lu Hantian rubbed his chin with his right hand and pondered for a moment before saying, How about this? Come back with me to the house of Marquis Qin. I, your big brother, have a way for you to save your family. Zhuowen's eyes flashed. He knew that Lu Hantian was going to help him. As long as Lu Hantian helped him, the chances of saving the Zhuo family would be much higher. Let's go. With that, Lu Hantian waved his sleeve and led Zhuan away from the century-old brew. Not long after, the two of them arrived at the center of the provincial capital. It was an extremely spacious mansion. This mansion was the famous house of Marquis Qin. Zhuan was shocked when he saw the dragon-like mansion in front of him. The house of Marquis Qin was indeed worthy of being the #1 faction in Muqin County. Its mansion occupied such a large area that it was even several times larger than a super city. Unauthorized personnel are not allowed to enter. Otherwise, they will be killed without mercy. At the door, 2 armored soldiers with powerful auras flashed their weapons and shouted at Zhuan and Lu Hantian. Kill your sister without mercy. Get out of my way. When I was still in the house of Marquis Qin, the two of you weren't even born yet. Lu Hantian was extremely domineering. He shouted loudly and the 2 soldiers in front of the door fell to the ground. Lu Hantian then led Zhuowen into the mansion. Lu Hantian was a genius of the house of Marquis Qin after all. He was quite familiar with the roads inside the house of Marquis Qin. He led Zhuowen into the depths of the mansion without hesitation. Let's keep going. We should be able to reach the inner hall of the house of Marquis Qin soon. At that time, we will be able to find Lu Nantian directly. Lu Hantian said as he walked. However, when he mentioned Lu Nantian, Lu Hantian's expression changed. With Zhuowen's keen senses, he naturally noticed it. He was also very puzzled. In fact, when Lu Hantian's deeds were different from what Lu Nantian had said, Zhuowen suspected that there was something fishy going on. Now, looking at Lu Hantian's expression, he was afraid that the matter back then was not so simple. Although he was extremely puzzled, Zhuowen did not ask. He knew that as long as he met Lu Nantian, the truth of what happened back then would be completely revealed. Who are the two of you? Why have I never seen the two of you in the house? Suddenly, a fierce shout came from behind the two of them. It made Zhuowen and Lu Hantian's bodies freeze. Moreover, Zhuowen discovered that this shout gave him a trace of familiarity. He could not help but think of a person. A strange expression appeared on his face. Turning around, Zhuowen discovered that there were about 5 people standing behind him. The person in the lead was wearing a brocade robe. He had a handsome face and a slender figure. It was actually the 3rd prince of the house of Marquis Qin, Lu Yuanhua. The 4 people standing behind Lu Yuanhua were middle-aged men with terrifying auras. Their strength was not weaker than Zhuowen. 1 or 2 of them were even stronger than Zhuowen. Zhuowen. When LV Yuanhua saw Zhuowen, who was carrying a green coffin on his back, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then, his face revealed a look of ecstasy, and he laughed complacently. It seems that a bastard like you has a tough life. Even the inheritance of the blood devil could not kill you. However, since you have broken into the house of Marquis Qin today, don't think that you can leave alive. For elders, these 2 people have broken into our house of Marquis Qin. We should immediately execute them on the spot to spread the prestige of our house of Marquis Qin. Otherwise, if any small fry can casually break into our house of Marquis Qin in the future, wouldn't it be a mess? The 4 old men nodded when they heard this. They had also heard of Zhuowen's reputation. Although they were surprised that Zhuowen was actually able to come out alive, they only thought that he was lucky. Moreover, these 4 elders were in Lu Yuanhua's faction. Now that Lu Yuanhua had spoken, they naturally would not disobey him. I think the 2 of you should tie your hands and come with us. This way you will suffer less. One of the elders with the most powerful aura strode over. His nose was high, and he was full of disdain for Zhuowen and Lu Hantian. In his opinion, the 2 people in front of him were sloppy like a beggar, and the other was carrying a coffin. He was afraid that they were not powerful people. He looked down on them from the beginning. If the 2 of them were obedient and followed him, he could be merciful. However, if they were not obedient, they could not blame him for being ruthless. Zhuowen shook his head. He was very clear about Lu Hantian's violent temper. These people had offended him so thoughtlessly. He was afraid that they would suffer later. Seeing that the 2 of them did not say anything, the elder frowned and said, "Are you afraid? Since you are afraid, then come with us." Lowly people like you are not qualified to enter the house of Marquis Qin. Good, good, good. A group of dogs who bully others because of their master's power. When did the house of Marquis Qin become like this? How did Lu Nantian manage it in the past 100 years? He raised such a group of dogs who are worse than pigs. Lu Hantian's face was gloomy, and his voice became extremely cold. His eyes were full of coldness and ruthlessness as he stared at the elder. How dare you scold this old man? You are courting death. The elder's face changed slightly. He stamped his foot and directly hit Lu Hantian with his palm. He wanted to kill this sloppy beggar who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth. Get lost. Lu Hantian waved his sleeve, and a force like rolling thunder surged out. Under this force, the elder could not resist at all. He spat out a mouthful of blood and was sent flying. He rolled on the ground for nearly 100 meters and then fainted. What? You dare to touch the people of the house of Marquis Qin? I think you are really courting death. Lu Yuanhua was shocked and angry. He did not expect this sloppy beggar to be so strong. Courting death? I came here today to look for Lu Nantian. Back then, even Lu Nantian did not dare to be so presumptuous in front of me. You juniors dare to speak to me like this? Lu Hantian waved his sleeve again. Lu Yuanhua and the other 3 elders were forced back, and they spat out a mouthful of blood. Good. Let's go. With that, Lu Hantian ignored Lu Yuanhua and the others and led Jun into the depths of the house of Marquis Qin. There was a huge inner hall in the depths of the house of Marquis Qin. The inner hall was where the Marquis of Muqin usually dealt with matters. In front of the inner hall was an extremely vast square made of white jade. It was sparkling and translucent. There were nearly 100 people neatly lined up in the square. They were all about the same age, young men in their 20s. Their auras were surging, and their cultivations were not lower than the ultimate emperor realm. They were all talented geniuses. Lu Nantian stood above the square with his hands behind his back. His eyes were like torches as he looked at the nearly 100 geniuses in the square below. A trace of satisfaction appeared on his resolute face. These nearly 100 geniuses were naturally the results of the selection of the Origin Chi Tower. Lu Nantian was looking forward to these geniuses achieving good results in the upcoming battle of the 9 counties and winning glory for Muqin County. Dang dang dang. The crisp sound of footsteps suddenly came from outside the square, causing Lu Nantian to frown slightly. He had instructed that no one was allowed to enter the inner hall without his permission. After all, this was the training ground that he specially used to nurture these geniuses. How could he allow unauthorized people to disturb it? The other geniuses on the square were attracted by the footsteps, causing their gazes to gather toward the source of the footsteps. They were curious to see who was so daring to barge into the inner hall without Lu Nantian's permission. Under the gazes of the crowd, 2 figures finally appeared in everyone's line of sight. In particular, the young man with the green coffin on his back attracted everyone's attention. Due to the appearance of the young man, the square also descended into a trace of silence. Lu Nantian was also stunned. His eyes were fixed on the young man, and a trace of surprise and disbelief appeared on his face. Lu Hantian, who was standing beside Juan, seemed to have been ignored by everyone at this moment. Everyone was staring at Juan in a daze. It's actually Juan? He didn't die and came out of the blood demon inheritance? You must have heard about the abnormality of the Origin Chi Tower a few days ago, right? It is said that 2 people broke out of the tower. One of them was carrying a green coffin, while the other looked like a beggar. It seems like they are the 2 people in front of us. This Juan is too terrifying. Even the blood demon inheritance can't do anything to him? Whispers suddenly resounded in the square like a curtain of rain. Everyone was staring at the young man with the green coffin in shock. Their expressions were different as they discussed spiritedly. Lu Hantian, who was ignored, was extremely unhappy with everyone's neglect. He said loudly, "Lu Nanan, why aren't you getting your ass over here?" Chapter 593. Despicable Lu Hantian. Nearly 100 geniuses looked at the sloppy beggar beside Juan as if they were looking at an idiot. Who is this guy? He actually dared to tell Marquis Lu to get down? Is his brain flooded with water? What's wrong with Juan? Why did he bring a lunatic here? Many geniuses in the square began to whisper and discuss. Who is Lu Nantian? He is the #1 expert in Muqing County, and a powerful 4th revered expert. This sloppy beggar actually dared to speak like this. It seems like he is really courting death. Lu Nantian was not the slightest bit angry. Instead, his body trembled. This voice, this tone, it was so familiar. Could this person be him? Thinking of this, Lu Nantian quickly walked down and arrived in front of Lu Hantian. His sharp eyes stared at the sloppy man in front of him. His expression became more dignified and surprised, and his judgment became more certain. This person is finished. If Marquis Lu gets angry, this person is dead for sure. I'm afraid that Juan is also finished. Bringing such a vulgar person is simply courting death. Let's see how these two will face Marquis Lu's anger. In the square, many geniuses looked at Lu Hantian and Juan with ridicule. There were even some who took pleasure in their misfortune. Juan's performance in the Battle of the Vitality Tower was too stunning. As the saying goes, the hunter will shoot the bird that sticks out. Naturally, many geniuses were jealous of Juan. If Juan had come from a superpower, these geniuses wouldn't be so jealous of him. Instead, they would take it as a matter of course. However, Juan just so happened to be a genius from a low-level city. Many powers looked down on him as he came from the weakest low-level city. With such a lowly background, he was able to soar through the Origin Chi Tower, surpassing countless geniuses and breaking numerous records. This was undoubtedly a slap to the faces of many high-level powers. A lowly genius that no one placed in their eyes had actually surpassed them. How could this not arouse hatred and jealousy? Therefore, these people were very willing to see Juan suffer. In fact, they were very eager to see it happen. Big brother, is it really you? You actually came out of the Blood Devil legacy? Suddenly, Lu Nantian grabbed Lu Hantian's shoulders with both hands. His expression became extremely emotional, and his dignified eyes were brimming with tears. This scene caused everyone in the square to be stunned. What was going on? Big brother? Lu Nantian actually called this sloppy beggar Big brother? Was there a mistake? This unkempt man looked like a beggar from head to toe. How could he be the elder brother of Lu Nantian, a county lord? At this moment, everyone was thinking that Lu Nantian must have made a mistake. He must have made a mistake, or he was just messing around. Too mushy. Move aside. Although you are my brother, I don't have that kind of hobby. Get lost. Lu Hantian's words were extremely hateful. The beggar relaxed his shoulders and hurriedly retreated more than 10 meters. He looked at Lu Nantian with disdain. Instantly, countless people fell to the ground. This beggar was too despicable. What kind of person was Lu Nantian? It was an honor for him to pat you on the shoulder. He actually showed such an expression. Many people in the square almost couldn't bear it and went up to slap this beggar. Ha! Big brother, you really haven't changed at all. You are still the Lu Hantian from back then, ha! Lu Nantian didn't care. Lu Hantian's behavior showed that he didn't treat him as an outsider. This Lu Hantian? The peerless genius of Muqing County 100 years ago, Lu Hantian? Once Lu Nantian's words came out, countless people in the square sucked in a breath of cold air. They couldn't believe that this guy in front of them was the peerless genius that countless geniuses worshipped. This really blinded everyone's eyes. The originally grand image of Lu Hantian in countless people's imaginations had completely collapsed at this moment. All that was left in their minds was this old beggar without any image to speak of. 5 days ago, the abnormality in the Yuan Chi Tower should have been caused by you and Juan, right? Lu Nantian said with a smile. Lu Hantian nodded and quickly pulled Juan over. He said, "It seems like you also know Juan. However, this kid is now my brother. In the future, he will also be your brother. You have to treat him well." Juan calls Nantian second brother. Black lines immediately appeared on Juan's face as he looked at the somewhat awkward Lu Nantian in front of him. He was filled with helplessness. Lu Nantian was the lord of a county. There weren't many people who could call such a person brother. Zhuan couldn't help but feel that it was a little strange that a mere ultimate emperor realm cultivator would actually call Lu Nantian brother. What? You don't want to? Lu Hantian glared at him and coldly snorted. Lu Nantian shook his head. He is very clear about Lu Hantian's temperament, so he smiled and cupped his fists toward Zhuowen and said, Zhuowen, since you are Big Brother's brother, then you are also my Nanshan's brother. You are younger than me, so I will call you third brother. The conversation between Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian was naturally heard by many geniuses in the square. Immediately, all of them rolled their eyes. What the hell was going on? Zhuan had become Lu Nanshan's brother just like that. Wasn't this too much of a joke? All of the geniuses felt their balls ache. Are these brats the ones you are preparing to participate in the Battle of the 9 Counties? Lu Hantian's gaze landed on the square as he pointed at the group of geniuses and said arrogantly. Lu Nantian was as calm as still water as he smiled. Thus, the geniuses in this year's Origin Chi Tower battle are much stronger than the previous one. I believe that our Muqing County will achieve a good result in this battle of the 9 counties. Perhaps more than 10 geniuses will enter the Azure Emperor ranking. Yes, indeed, but since you have trained these brats like this, you should be their master. Come, I am your master's big brother. In any case, I am also your martial uncle. Come and pay your respects to your martial uncle. Lu Hantian was here to act cheap again. He took a few steps and stood on the square. After a quarter of an hour, he made several poses. Finally, he chose a pose that he thought was the most handsome and stood there waiting for the geniuses to pay their respects. All of the geniuses were speechless. This Lu Hantian was too cheap. They really wanted to go up and give him a slap, but they didn't dare. Even Lu Nantian didn't dare to be impudent in front of Lu Hantian. Obviously, Lu Hantian was also a fourth venerable expert. Forget it? Lu Hantian was a peerless genius in the past. It was only right for them to pay their respects to him. Greetings, Martial Uncle Lu. The group of geniuses had bitter faces. They could only comfort themselves in their hearts. Then, they unwillingly paid their respects to Lu Hantian. Aya, this is the benefit of being handsome. Life is as lonely as snow. Lu Hantian smiled mischievously, then shook his head. His face revealed a lonely and pained expression, which made everyone's face twitch unnaturally. Also, this Zhuowen is my brother. Speaking of which, he is also your martial uncle. Come, pay your respects to Zhuowen. Lu Hantian didn't give up. He quickly pulled Zhuowen over and grinned at the geniuses in the square. His smile was as lewd as it could be. It was fine if they paid their respects to you, but this Zhuowen was younger than them. Although he was strong, he was still considered as their peer. How could they pay their respects to Zhuowen? Everyone froze and began to hesitate. They couldn't accept paying their respects to Zhuowen. What? You don't want to pay your respects? Are you not giving me, Lu Hantian, any face? Lu Hantian's face turned cold. An extremely terrifying pressure was emitted. Instantly, everyone in the square felt as if there was a mountain pressing down on their backs. Everyone's face was filled with fear. This Lu Hantian was too terrifying. Just the pressure he emitted was enough to make them unable to stand up. Greetings, Martial Uncle Zhua. In the square, everyone was helpless. They could only lower their bodies and pay their respects to Zhu. This Lu Hantian was strong and shameless. It was their bad luck to meet such a martial uncle. On the other side of the square, Lu Nanshan's eyes shone brightly. When Lu Hantian had emitted his pressure, even he had been a little unsteady. It seemed that his elder brother's cultivation hadn't regressed during the hundreds of years of the Blood Devil inheritance. His strength was definitely above his own. Lu Hantian revealed a satisfied expression. Just as he was about to bring Zhuowen and Lu Nantian into the inner hall to discuss the matters of the Marquis of Baichuan's residence, a group of 10 people suddenly entered the square. The person in the lead was dressed in luxurious purple clothes. There was a trace of killing intent on his face as he hurried into the square. Zhuowen recognized this person. It was the second prince of the house of Marquis Qin, Lu Yongsheng. Beside him was the pale-faced Lu Yuanhua. Behind the two of them was a group of generals in armor. Each of them had a terrifying aura. They were all experts who had reached the ultimate emperor realm. Lu Yongxing and Lu Yuanhua quickly walked to Lu Nanxin's side. Lu Yongxing glared coldly at Zhuan and said to Lu Nantian, "Lord Father, not only did these two people trespass into our house of Marquis Qin, they also injured 4 elders and 3rd brother. Their actions are vile and audacious. These 2 people deserve to die. Lord Father, please uphold justice for us." As soon as Lu Yongxing said this, the atmosphere in the square immediately quieted down. Everyone stared at Lu Yongxing's group with strange gazes. It was as if they were watching a clown perform. If Lu Yongxing knew that the beggar he was accusing was Lu Hantian, how would he feel? Lu Yongxing also noticed the strange gazes of the people around him and frowned slightly. Although he didn't understand the meaning behind their expressions, he didn't care. In fact, he was already suppressing a belly full of anger. This Zhuan was too presumptuous. Although he was surprised by Zhuan's appearance, this person was too daring. Not only did he defeat him and Lu Yuanhua in the Origin Qi Pagoda, but now he even came to the house of Marquis Qin to cause trouble. If Lu Yongxing didn't get rid of this Zhuan today, it would be difficult to relieve the hatred in Lu Yongxing's heart. A junior still dares to be so arrogant. Come. Since you think we deserve to die, come and chop me. Yes, chop here. Remember to chop accurately. Don't miss. Lu Hantian began to act shamelessly again. He sneered and pointed at his neck, boasting shamelessly. His arrogance was much more arrogant than Lu Yongxing's. Lu Yongxing was stunned. He didn't expect this beggar to be so infuriating. He coldly snorted and said, "You said it. If I accidentally kill you, then don't blame me." Chapter 594. What happened in the past, Father? Why are you stopping me? At this moment, LV Yongxing was looking at Lu Nantian with a puzzled expression. The one who had stopped him was Lu Nantian. "Kneel. Apologize." Lu Nanxin's expression was solemn as he spat out these words, causing LV Yongxing and the others to be dumbfounded. "Father, what did you just say? You want me to kneel and apologize?" LV Yongxing's eyes were wide open as he spoke with a face full of disbelief. He almost thought that he had misheard. "Bastard! Why aren't you kneeling? Do you know who he is? He is your uncle, Lu Hantian. Where did you get the courage to be so impudent in front of your uncle?" Lu Nantian coldly snorted as a terrifying aura gushed out and covered LV Yongxing's body. With a plop sound, LV Yongxing knelt on the ground. Lu Yuanhua and the others behind him also knelt on the ground without exception. The aura of 4 venerable realm experts was too terrifying. It was not something that they could resist. Lu Hantian? However, they did not care that they were kneeling on the ground. They were all looking at the beggar standing beside Zhuan in shock. This guy was actually Lu Hantian, the peerless genius that they had worshipped since they were young? However, they also knew that since Lu Nantian had said so, he was definitely not lying to them. Their eyes flickered as LV Yongxing and the others could only lower their heads and say, "Just now, we were blind and offended, uncle. We hope that you can forgive us." Lu Hantian shook his head and did not pay attention to LV Yongxing. Instead, he said to Lu Nantian, "If the house of Marquis Qin wants to continue to grow, then you need to properly manage this huge mansion. However, Nanan, you clearly did not satisfy me." Lu Nantian looked ashamed and said, "Big brother, it was my mistake to make the house of Marquis Qin so chaotic. Now that you have returned, the house of Marquis Qin will be managed by you, big brother." Everyone was shocked when they heard this. They never thought that Lu Nantian would actually give up the authority to manage the house of Marquis Qin. That was the position of the lord of a county. His status and authority were practically supreme in Muqin County. "No need. I came back this time because of Zhuan. Otherwise, I might never step into the house of Marquis Qin. You have been in charge of the house of Marquis Qin for so many years. Leaving it to me will only make things worse. You should keep it for yourself." Lu Hantian waved his hand dispiritedly. "Big brother, father didn't do that on purpose. He had no other choice. I hope you won't hate him. Lu Nantian said hesitantly. Alright, let's not talk about the past. Is that old man dead? Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes and snorted coldly. Father passed away 10 years ago. Lu Nantian said sadly. Lu Hantian's body trembled. His pupils shrank as he said in surprise. It's Su Ling Tian. Lu Nantian said with resentment in his eyes. Su Ling Tian. It's that old man again. I thought that the old man would really leave. He actually stayed in the county for almost 100 years? Lu Hantian's voice became extremely cold. Jun was confused when he heard this. From the conversation between the two, Jun could tell that Su Ling Tian wasn't simple. Otherwise, even Lu Hantian would reveal a fearful expression. Let's go to the inner hall to talk. I've returned to the house of Marquis Qin to settle some old debts besides the matter of Jun, Lu Hantian said in an indifferent voice. Lu Nantian nodded. His eyes revealed a trace of expectation. He gave some instructions to the other people in the square and led Lu Hantian and Juan into the magnificent inner hall. After Lu Nantian and the other two left, most of the geniuses in the square also dispersed. Lu Yongxing's group of 10 stood at the edge of the square. Their expressions were extremely complicated. None of them had expected that the peerless genius Lu Hantian would still be alive. Moreover, he had returned to the house of Marquis Qin. Third brother, we can't afford to provoke this Juan. You and I should be very clear about the deeds of our eldest uncle, Lu Hantian. It's obvious that this child and our eldest uncle came out of the blood devil inheritance together. They have a close relationship. You shouldn't provoke him anymore. Otherwise, our eldest uncle might not care about family ties and ruthlessly deal with you. Lu Yongxing sighed inwardly. He looked at Lu Yuanhua, who was still unwilling to give up. Since childhood, the people of the house of Marquis Qin worshipped Lu Hantian the most. Therefore, they were very clear about the deeds and temperament of Lu Hantian. It was precisely because they were clear about Lu Hantian's temperament that Lu Yongxing didn't dare to provoke Juan. He was very clear that if Lu Hantian went crazy, he could really do anything. I know, second brother. In the future, I won't provoke Juan anymore. Lu Yuanhua clenched his fists and said with a bitter smile. Lu Yuanhua suddenly realized that he had been thoroughly defeated. Looking at the figure walking side by side with Lu Hantian and Lu Nantian, Lu Yuanhua suddenly thought of the stubborn figure in Rattan Armor City who didn't yield in the face of his powerful strength. Perhaps from the beginning he shouldn't have provoked Juan. Unfortunately, time couldn't be turned back, and medicine for regret couldn't be bought. In the spacious inner hall, rows of lanterns floated in the air, illuminating the large hall with incomparable brightness. In the middle of the inner hall sat 3 figures. They were Juan, Lu Hantian, and Lu Nantian. As soon as Juan sat down, he couldn't wait to ask, Big Brother Hantian, what exactly was the reason you were trapped in the blood demon inheritance back then? Also, who exactly is this Su Ling Tian that you guys mentioned just now? There were too many questions in Zhuo Wen's heart. Back in the 100-Year Brew restaurant, when Zhuo Wen had suggested that they break into the house of Marquis by Chuan, Lu Hantian had revealed a dignified expression. It was as if there was something in the house that he feared. It must be known that Lu Hantian was a supreme heavenly venerate expert. In Zhuo Wen's opinion, such an expert was almost invincible in Muqin County. However, Lu Hantian had revealed a grave expression. Then, there was only one possibility. There should be an existence hidden in the 100-Year Marquis mansion that Lu Hantian feared. Lu Hantian's eyes flickered as he said, You're not an outsider. Then, I'll tell you what happened back then. After a pause, Lu Hantian began to tell the truth of what happened back then. 100 years ago, in the previous Vitality Tower battle, Lu Hantian had appeared out of nowhere and defeated countless geniuses. The geniuses of the other 4 super forces couldn't even withstand one move from Lu Hantian. At that time, Lu Hantian was high-spirited and his strength was monstrous. Even some geniuses in the imperial capital county had noticed this peerless heaven's pride of Muqin County. Muqin County was truly blessed at that time. Not only did it produce a peerless genius like Lu Hantian, but his younger brother, Lu Nantian, was also not weak. Although he was not as strong as Lu Hantian, he was comparable to the number 1 geniuses of the other 4 superforces. It could be said that the House of Marquis Qin was at its most glorious at that time. If a single sect had produced 2 extraordinary geniuses, then as time passed and they completely matured, the influence of the Mu Qin Marquis estate would surely far surpass the other 4 extraordinary powers. At the end of the Vitality Tower battle, Lu Hantian had undoubtedly surpassed all the other geniuses and obtained 5 inheritances on the 4th floor of the inheritance ground. At that time, Lu Hantian was very conceited and looked down on the 5 ancient inheritances. He stubbornly chose the Blood Demon inheritance. The scene at that time was similar to Zhuowen's choice of the Blood Demon inheritance. It shocked countless masters. Lu Hantian was indeed heaven-defying. He had passed through 18 trials and reached the core area of the Blood Demon inheritance ground. At that time, the Blood Demon had yet to awaken. If Lu Hantian wanted to leave, it would have been easy. However, because the Blood Demon inheritance was located in the Blood Demon's lair, and the Blood Demon's lair was the place where the Blood Demon was hibernating, Lu Hantian's strength wasn't as strong as it was now. If he entered the Blood Demon's lair, the chances of him dying were very high. Therefore, Lu Hantian didn't enter. Without any other choice, Lu Hantian could only casually plunder some items from the core area and leave the Blood Demon inheritance ground. After handing over the Blood Demon inheritance ground to Lu Nantian, Lu Hantian was still unwilling to leave like this. Therefore, Lu Hantian re-entered the Blood Demon inheritance ground. He gritted his teeth and decided to enter the Blood Demon's lair. Carefully, Lu Hantian snuck into the Blood Demon's lair. He did indeed find a lot of good things inside. Just as he was about to take some good things, the ancestor of the Marquis House of Baichuan, Su Lingtian, quietly followed Lu Hantian in. At that time, the one that followed Lu Hantian in was a puppet refined by Su Lingtian. Its strength was even weaker than Lu Hantian's, but its aura was hidden very well. Even Lu Hantian didn't notice it. It was this puppet that attacked the sleeping Blood Demon when Lu Hantian was about to leave the Blood Demon's lair. With the Blood Demon's personality, it was natural for it to become furious after being disturbed. As for Lu Hantian, he became the sacrificial lamb. Fortunately, Lu Hantian's escaping skills were top-notch. Although the Blood Demon was powerful, Lu Hantian managed to escape with his life. Since then, Lu Hantian had been trapped in the Blood Demon's inheritance ground for 100 years. Su Lingtian is the ancestor of the Marquis House of Baichuan? He's also a 4th Venerable Realm expert? Yun asked with furrowed brows. He didn't expect that the Marquis House of Baichuan would have an ancestor. This Marquis House of Baichuan was indeed not simple. After such a long period of existence, our 5 superpowers have naturally nurtured many 4th Venerable Realm experts. However, these powerful ancestors would usually choose to leave Muqing County and travel to other places. Or they would go outside the Qingxian Empire to seek a wider sky. This is also the reason why there are so few 4th Venerable Realm experts in Muqing County. Lu Nantian spread out his hands. Oh, so Su Lingtian hasn't left? Has he always been in the Marquis House of Baichuan? Zhuowen nodded and continued to ask. No, Su Lingtian left Muqing County 1,000 years ago. However, he suddenly returned 100 years ago. Perhaps he felt threatened by Big Brother, so Su Lingtian plotted against Big Brother and caused him to fall in the Blood Demon's inheritance ground. His goal was to prevent the House of Marquis Qin from becoming stronger. Lu Nantian was very clear about the problem. He immediately saw through Su Lingtian's goal. Chapter 595. Grudges. Back then, the previous owner of the House of Marquis Qin, my father, L.V. Howren, was furious when he found out about this. He barged into Su Lingtian's cave alone to demand an explanation. Unfortunately, Su Lingtian was already a peak golden venerate 100 years ago. He was only half a step away from the heavenly venerate realm. My father was the same as me. He had just entered the 4 venerates realm and was only from the Xuanzuan realm. He was 2 realms below the golden venerate realm. He was no match for Su Lingtian. LV Nanshan's eyes were filled with hatred. It was obvious that LV Howren had suffered a crushing defeat at the hands of Su Lingtian. The price of his defeat was naturally his life. After that battle, my father was seriously injured. When he returned, he passed the position of county master to me. He then went into seclusion to recuperate, but his injuries were too serious. 10 years ago, his injuries flared up and he passed away. LV Nanshan's resolute face was filled with grief and indignation at the mention of LV Howren's death. His fists were clenched tightly. Boom! LV Hantian's body shook. A terrifying aura surged out. The tables and chairs around them exploded into dust under this aura. At this moment, LV Hantian's playful smile had disappeared. His face was filled with coldness. Well done. This Su Lingtian is getting more and more arrogant. When the ancestors of the House of Marquis Qin were still around, this old dog didn't even dare to fart. Now that the ancestors of the House of Marquis Qin are no longer around, does this old dog really intend to seize the position of county master of the House of Marquis Qin? LV Hantian's expression was extremely cold. The aura in his body became even more terrifying. Zhuan and LV Nantian retreated in horror. Zhuan's retreat was pardonable, but LV Nantian was also from the Xuanzuan realm. Even he was forced to retreat. This LV Hantian was indeed terrifying. Big brother, could it be that you've also reached the Golden Exalt realm? Sensing Lu Hantian's terrifying aura, Lu Nanshan's eyes flickered and he revealed a look of pleasant surprise. Although he knew that Lu Hantian's cultivation was definitely higher than his, he only believed that the former was only a level higher than him, the sovereign realm. However, Lu Hantian's aura alone was enough to force him to retreat. This was not something a sovereign could do. At the very least, Lu Hantian was a Golden Exalt. The Four Venerables realm, as the name implied, naturally had four minor realms. They were the Xuanzuan realm, the Supreme realm, the Golden Venerables realm, and the Heavenly Venerables realm. Each realm was more terrifying than the last. Moreover, after reaching the fourth level, the armor soul in his body would also be greatly improved. It would be materialized, and the armor soul would turn from a soul body into a physical body. Its strength would increase exponentially. Therefore, after reaching the fourth venerable realm, the armor soul, which had become useless, would become extremely important and powerful. It could greatly increase the strength of the martial artist. However, Lu Hantian shook his head and said, "It's not the Golden Venerables realm, but the peak of the Heavenly Venerables realm. Although the Blood Demon's land of inheritance is extremely dangerous, there are also many benefits. The energy of heaven and earth inside is much richer. 1 day of cultivation inside is equivalent to a month's cultivation. It's almost 30 times faster than the outside world." Hearing this, Zhuan and Lu Nantian both nodded. No wonder Lu Hantian's cultivation was so fast. It turned out that the Blood Demon's land of inheritance had such benefits. This time, I've survived a great disaster. Then I'll kill that old dog Su Lingtian. The Baichuan Marquis residence doesn't need to exist anymore. This time, the Baichuan Marquis residence will be my stepping stone. Lu Hantian slowly withdrew his aura and said indifferently, "Zhuan, go ahead and break into the Baichuan Marquis residence. I'll do my best to pin down the experts inside for you. If anyone dares to touch you, I'll directly destroy them." Lu Hantian patted Zhuan's shoulder and said heroically, "Many thanks, big brother Hantian." Zhuan quickly cupped his hands, his face full of gratitude. "Nantian, go to the Baichuan Marquis residence first and send that Su Chang away. Let Zhuan do his best to break through the Baichuan Marquis residence. Leave the matter of covering the rear to me." Lu Hantian said to Lu Nantian, "Okay, I'll go to the Baichuan Marquis residence now." Lu Nanshan's face lit up with excitement. When he learned that Lu Hantian had reached the peak of the Empyrean realm, he knew that he would be able to take revenge for LV Howren. As Lu Nantian left, Lu Hantian waved his sleeve and a wisp of energy passed between Zhuan's eyebrows. He continued to say, "Zhuan, the information I sent you is the approximate location of the Baichuan Marquis residence. Since Su Tianliang is the high heir of the Baichuan Marquis residence, He should be living in Arid Peace Palace. That is the palace of the high airs. Go there and look for him. After obtaining this information, Zhuowen's face lit up with joy. He wasn't familiar with the Baichuan Marquis residence and had been worried about the map problem. But now, Lu Hantian had helped him solve it ahead of time. Let's go. This old man will accompany you to the Baichuan Marquis residence. This time, we must turn the Baichuan Marquis residence upside down. Only then will that old dog Su Lingtian appear. Otherwise, even I won't be able to find that old dog. As Lu Hantian spoke, he flicked his sleeves and brought Yuan with him, vanishing from the inner hall. Within the Baichuan Marquis residence, within a vast palace, Su Chang was sitting cross-legged on a praying mat, silently cultivating. The aura around him surged like a raging river, unstoppable. Dong dong. A clear knocking sound slowly sounded out. Su Chang frowned. He opened his eyes and coldly said, "What is it?" He saw a maid in plain clothes push open the door and enter. She respectfully bowed and said, "Lord Marquis, Lord Lu Nantian requests an audience." Lu Nantian? Why did he suddenly request an audience with me? Su Chang was puzzled as he asked in puzzlement. After the maid left, Su Chang tidied up his clothes and slowly pushed open the door. Although the Baichuan Marquis residence had Su Lingtian's support, he actually did not take Lu Nantian seriously. However, Lu Nantian was the county lord after all. Moreover, Lu Nantian's strength was much higher than his, so Su Chang was still extremely fearful. Although he was full of doubts, he still could not forget some etiquette. Ancestor is about to come out of closed-door cultivation. When he completely comes out, I'm afraid the county lord will change. Su Chang could not help but reveal a trace of a sinister smile when he recalled Su Lingtian's promise to him. He was very clear about Su Lingtian's strength. Although Su Lingtian's strength was unstoppable 100 years ago, the position of county lord was not something that could be taken at will. This position was personally conferred by the Qing emperor. Su Lingtian was indeed powerful, but he still did not dare to seize it by force. However, if Su Lingtian could break through to the heavenly venerate realm, he would be valued by the Qing emperor. At that time, as long as Su Lingtian asked, the Qing emperor would probably agree to the matter of changing the county lord. A few days ago, ancestors said that he was about to break through to the heavenly venerate realm. It seems that the day of our Baichuan Marquis residence becoming the county lord of Muqin is approaching. Thinking of this, the corners of Su Chang's mouth curved into a complacent smile. He was no longer so fearful of Lu Nantian because in his opinion, this Lu Nantian was destined to submit to him. In the hall, Lu Nantian smiled and sat quietly in his seat, leisurely sipping tea as if this place was his home. When Su Chang entered the hall and saw LV Nantian who was leisurely and contented, there was a slight displeasure between his brows. He really didn't like LV Nantian's leisurely and contented expression, as if everything was in his hands. However, when he recalled Su Lingtian's words, he did not pay too much attention to it. Instead, he smiled and said, "May I know why Brother Lu has suddenly come to my residence?" Brother Su, it's been a long time since I've had a good chat with you. I've nothing to do today, so I wanted to have a good chat with you. I've even brought a lot of wine and delicacies. The corners of Lu Nantian's mouth curved into a smile. With a wave of his sleeve, a rectangular table appeared in the center of the hall. It was filled with a rich and delicious wine. The wine was sweet and mellow like nectar, and its fragrance permeated the air. Su Chang revealed a strange expression. He wasn't sure what Lu Nantian's intentions were, but he didn't care too much. He sat down across from Lu Nantian and said, "Since Brother Lu is so kind, I won't refuse. Today, I will drink with Brother Lu to my heart's content." As Su Chang and Lu Nantian were drinking with their own thoughts, Lu Hantian and Zhuan were standing in the skies above the 100 Rivers Marquis mansion, looking down at the massive city below. "Lun, Arid Peace Palace is there. I fear that your family members are imprisoned in the depths of the palace. Go ahead, your big brother will wait for you here. Make as much noise as you can. This time, we must draw out that old dog Su Lingtian." As Lu Hantian spoke to hear, his lips curved up in a cold smile. Also, give me your bone spear. Lu Hantian suddenly said to Zhuan. Zhuan was startled. Although he was puzzled, he still took out the dragon-scale tyrant bone spear and handed it to Lu Hantian. Bang! A mysterious concept emerged from Lu Hantian's hand. The originally ordinary-looking bone spear actually erupted with a terrifying aura. It began to expand like a balloon, spreading out for nearly 100 miles. Moreover, this aura continued to increase until it spread out for nearly 1,000 miles. This terrifying aura covered the entire area for 1,000 miles. Countless white clouds tumbled about, as if countless dragons were wreaking havoc. Luckily, they were 10,000 miles high up in the skies, so not many people noticed this strange phenomenon. This aura only lasted for a moment before it was completely restrained. The bone spear was still a bone spear, but there was an additional sharpness to it. Hyun, pour a part of my spear intent into this bone spear. With this spear, no one below the 9-Wheel Emperor realm will be able to stop you. Within the 100 River Marquis Mansion, besides Su Chang and Su Lingtian, no one will be able to injure you. Lu Hantian smiled as he tossed the bone spear to Zhuan. Receiving the bone spear, Zhuan discovered that a mysterious concept flowed along the surface of the bone spear like the veins of a person's body. With just a thought, this powerful spear intent hidden deep within the bone spear would surge out like a tide. Invincible beneath the 9-Wheel Emperor realm? Zhuan revealed an excited expression. He had not expected Lu Hantian to pour spear intent into the dragon-scale tyrant bone spear. He knew that Lu Hantian's spear intent had reached the peak of perfection. With this spear intent, he truly did not need to fear the experts within the 100 River Marquis Mansion. Many thanks, Big Brother Hantian. Zhuan laughed heartily as he cupped his hands. Go! Lu Hantian waved his hand. Whoosh! You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.